Chapter 12-16. Li Zongjiu led Su Mo and Xuanye around the underground palace. The underground palace here was like a general's residence built underground. The courtyard was very unique, but because it was built underground, it gave off a gloomy feeling. It is said that this ancient underground palace was built based on the real general's mansion. The Yun family also said that there must be a guardian in every underground palace. The strength of these guardians must be extremely terrifying. Su Mo said calmly as she walked behind Li Zongjiu with Xuanye. However, Li Zongjiu nodded as he listened. Then, he walked in and pushed open the door of the general's mansion. They saw a bronze statue in golden armor standing in the middle of the courtyard. It seemed to be overseeing everything. There must be something wrong with this statue. When they saw the statue, the three of them stopped in their tracks. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the door behind them closed. Su Mo and Sun Yi also nervously turned around to take a look. In the next moment, there was a clanging sound as the statue in the courtyard dropped the Zamadeo on the ground. At the same time, the dust on its body fell off. Back off! Li Zongjiu waved his hand. Although the battle had not started, he could feel the strength of the opponent. It must be several times stronger than the golden armored stone golem outside. Can you do it? Su Mo looked at Li Zongjiu worriedly. Why don't you do it? Li Zongjiu glanced at Su Mo. Su Mo waved her hand naturally. No, you should do it. Su Mo waved her hand. Su Mo waved her hands. She knew that she couldn't deal with such an opponent. Li Zongjiu also moved his body slightly, then walked forward. As soon as he took a step, he saw the opponent's golden Zamadeo coming down on his head. Boom! The golden Zamadeo emitted a blinding golden light that illuminated the entire underground palace. When Li Zongjiu got closer, he threw a punch at the light released by the other party. Boom! A muffled collision sound rang out. Su Mo could clearly feel the vibrating force in the air. Immediately, he pulled Sun Yi back by 2 steps to avoid being seriously injured by this aura. Li Zongjiu's feet didn't move an inch, but the golden armored bronze man was sent flying. Bang! The house behind him collapsed. Li Zongjiu immediately waved his hand. And here I was thinking how powerful you were. You made me use 30% of my strength. Li Zongjiu said indifferently. However, Su Mo and Sun Yi rolled their eyes at Li Zongjiu. Li Zongjiu was clearly going all out, at least 80% of his strength, yet he was still putting on an act. However, the opponent's golden armored bronze man quickly flipped over and stood up. It didn't suffer too many injuries. After getting up, the golden armored bronze man seemed to consciously move its body. A trace of expression appeared on its originally stiff face as it waved at Li Zongjiu. Tisk, tsk, tsk. You have some brains, but you seem even more brainless. Li Zongjiu couldn't help but sigh. Obviously, the golden armored bronze man's soul was more well preserved. That was why it had such a posture and action. However, it was precisely because of its incomplete spiritual intelligence that it provoked Li Zongjiu. Immediately, Li Zongjiu rushed up and punched out again. Boom! The violent force of the punch directly shattered the barrier runes around the underground palace. At the same time, the golden armored bronze man was directly sent flying. It directly crashed into the underground palace, creating a large hole. Soon after, that person instantly disappeared before their eyes. A hole that directly led to the ground appeared in front of them. Su Mo and Sun Yi naturally couldn't see what happened to the golden armored bronze man. However, Li Zongjiu knew that the golden armored bronze man had been disintegrated by his power. At this moment, it had turned into a pile of nothingness. It's settled. Go and search for any treasures. Li Zongjiu gestured. In fact, these golden armored stone men weren't that powerful. At most, they were equivalent to the Origin Emperor realm. Only a slightly more powerful origin emperor realm. Encountering a supreme like him, of course, he would kill them all. After receiving the order, Su Mo and Sun Yi quickly rushed into the surrounding rooms. After a search, they found many elixirs that were sealed in the ancient times. Most of them were weapons and the like, all of which were displayed in the warehouse. Li Zongjiu walked into the main hall and came to the front of the main hall. Then, he waved his hand and kept everything that caught his eye into his interspatial ring. Looking at the wall in front of him, it was a bit of an eyesore. Then, he went forward and punched a hole in the wall. From the wall, he took out the 12 great mystery scriptures. I didn't even have to work for it. In this way, Li Zongjiu obtained a total of 3 scriptures. When Li Zongjiu and the others searched around, the Sea Empress and the others also came in. When they saw the traces of battle in the courtyard, they were immediately shocked. Traces of battle at this level. This is General Fengtian's residence. Zhang Xiaoyu said when she saw the style of the residence. Apart from the sacred martial emperor's powerful strength, the 12 golden armored bronze men under him were also extremely powerful. Obviously, this was General Fengtian's residence. It was built according to the situation of General Fengtian's residence in the ancient times. Moreover, the person in charge of the residence was most likely the legendary General Feng Tian, although he was refined into a golden armored bronze man. However, with General Fengtian's original strength, he would not be defeated so easily. At this moment, Li Zongjiu and the others were strolling around the mansion in boredom. This made people feel very angry. Just a moment ago, they were fighting with the golden armored golem outside, and it was as if they were going to die. Yet, they were sitting here and enjoying the fruits of others' labor. They did not care about the morals of the underworld. They were simply shameless. Therefore, Zhang Xiaoyu did not give Li Zongjiu and the others a good look. You're here. We've searched this place. There are no treasures. Li Zongjiu walked out and said. How would we know how many treasures you took for yourselves? Zhang Xiaoyu said angrily. She could not wait to challenge Li Zongjiu and then happily slap Li Zongjiu's face a few times to let him know how powerful she was. Li Zongjiu naturally did not care about Zhang Xiaoyu's words. The Sea Empress gestured with her right hand in the palm of her left hand. Suddenly, a wave of fluctuation spread out, but there was no abnormal movement. It's indeed not here. The Sea Empress sighed. What she used just now was a summoning technique. If the Sea God Scepter was nearby, it would definitely be attracted by her summoning. At least, there would be some movement, and it would not be so calm. This summoning technique could only be used within a radius of 100 meters. Within 100 meters, no matter where you hid something, even if it was hidden in a storage ring, it would be easily found. There would be no chance to hide it at all. Hey, what's this? Su Mo saw that there was a lotus at the place where the golden armored bronze man was. This lotus actually still had the breath of life on it. Immediately, Su Mo could not help but pluck the black lotus. Be careful. Li Zongjiu's figure flashed and grabbed Su Mo. The moment the lotus was plucked, the ground under their feet suddenly rumbled, as if a giant beast was about to break out of the ground. Boom! A giant rock python drilled out of the ground. It carried a monstrous devouring chi. Moreover, this giant rock python's body was extremely huge, almost like a mountain. Just its head alone was close to 300 feet long. It filled the entire courtyard. Li Zongjiu grabbed Su Mo, and at the same time, his figure flashed and landed beside Sun Yi. He led the two of them and rushed out of the hole that was created just now. Whoosh! The sound of the ground tearing and collapsing came from behind them. The Sea Empress also stretched out her hand, and an aura wrapped around Zhang Xiaoyu and Gu Sisi. Their figures also crashed into the soil above their heads. Boom! The vitality around them was like two giant blades, directly cutting the soil above their heads. Chapter 12-17. The Sea Empress landed on the ground with Zhang Xiaoyu and the others. Li Zongjiu also landed in the distance with Su Mo and Zhang Xiaoyu. The lotus in your hand is a treasure. Put it away quickly. Li Zongjiu reminded. Su Mo naturally put away the black lotus. He didn't need to be so polite in front of Li Zongjiu. Moreover, she had assisted Li Zongjiu just now, allowing Li Zongjiu to extort a huge sum of money from the Sea Empress. The value of this sum alone wasn't simple. Li Zongjiu hadn't thanked her yet. Of course, she had to keep this benefit. It's the skyscraping python. Rumor has it that it's General Fengtian's mount, Su Mo said. How do you know? Li Zongjiu looked at Su Mo in surprise. He didn't expect Su Mo to be so knowledgeable. I don't know either. The old man from the Yun family said it. He guessed that this should be General Fengtian's underground palace. However, General Fengtian's true body isn't here. It's in the Saint Martial Emperor's underground palace. Su Mo said. Li Zongjiu nodded. As they chatted, he noticed that there was a golden horn on the head of the skyward stone python. It looked a little out of place, as if it had been forcefully installed. It seems that the old man is still useful, Li Zongjiu said. Although it was said that powerful strength could ignore everything, sometimes knowledge was also very important. If one could master knowledge, they would definitely be able to walk a different life. However, now wasn't the time to talk about it. Such a huge beast. The strength of this rock snake must be extremely terrifying. Zhang Xiaoyu opened her mouth in surprise when she saw the skyscraping rock snake. This guy's size was too terrifying. Moreover, she could feel the terrifying aura emanating from the skyscraping rock snake. Be careful. The strength of this rock snake has surpassed the primitive emperor realm. It's at least at the sovereign realm. The Sea Empress warned the two girls behind her. What? So powerful. The two women were shocked. Although they knew that the rock snake was powerful, they didn't expect it to be terrifying to this extent. Supreme Being Realm. A random rock snake had reached the Supreme Being Realm. It was impossible for anyone to continue searching for treasures. Even the Sea Empress was nervous when she faced the rock snake. This was because the Sea Empress herself did not have the confidence to defeat the rock snake in front of her. Fortunately, the worshipping giant python's gaze locked onto Su Mo after glancing at Hai Ho and the others. After all, it was Su Mo who had plucked the worshipping giant python's lotus and had alarmed the worshipping giant python. Of course, he was staring at Su Mo. Su Mo's heart skipped a beat. Being stared at by the giant python, he couldn't help but feel nervous. Go to the back. Li Zongjiu signaled the two of them to step back. Immediately, his figure flashed and he rushed towards the worshipping giant python. The worshipping giant python roared and rolled its body towards Li Zongjiu. If it encountered Li Zongjiu would definitely be smashed to pieces. At least, that was the judgment of the worshipping giant python. The Sea Empress and the others were also very nervous as they watched the battle between Li Zongjiu and the worshipping giant python. Even Zhang Xiaoyu was cursing Li Zongjiu in her heart. She hoped that the worshipping giant python would swallow him alive. Anyway, he wouldn't be anything good. However, the next scene completely disappointed Zhang Xiaoyu. Li Zongjiu directly blasted the worshipping giant python's head with a punch. The punch seemed to have the strength of millions of caddies. There was no resistance at all. The worshipping giant python's head exploded into pieces with a bang. Li Zongjiu also grabbed a crystal core from within. Niden. The worshipping giant python's body circled half a circle in the air before it fell to the ground with a bang. Li Zongjiu put the Niden into his bag. A fatal blow. Zhang Xiaoyu even suspected that the Sea Empress had made a mistake in her judgment. In fact, the giant python's strength wasn't that great. Otherwise, the giant python's bluff would make people mistakenly think that it was very strong. In fact, it was just an illusion or an illusion. If that wasn't the case, how could Li Zongjiu defeat the giant python so easily? He only used one punch. Li Zongjiu patted the dust off his body, then glanced at the Sea Empress and the other two not far away. Since the underground palace has been explored, we will leave first. You can walk around by yourselves. There's no rush. Li Zongjiu said with a smile. In any case, she was someone who gave him so much money. Naturally, he had to be polite. Otherwise, she wouldn't dare to come here to play next time. The Sea Empress also smiled and cupped her fists in return. Imperial tutor, please go ahead. If you have the chance to come to the Four Seas next time, I will definitely treat you with great hospitality. The Sea Empress said. I must let this thief taste my power. Zhang Xiaoyu added in her heart. Then, Li Zongjiu and Su Mo sat on the scarlet flame bird and flew back in the direction of Qinggo City. In fact, when the Black Lotus was taken away, the underground palace was considered to be destroyed. All the essence was in the Black Lotus. Although it was said to be an extremely evil object, in fact, the Black Lotus was also a rare tonic in the human world. It was unknown how many years it had been sealed, but it finally grew to its current state. Since it was discovered by Su Mo, Li Zongjiu wouldn't fight with her. With the Black Lotus, Su Mo's strength would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. Things like strength didn't distinguish between good and evil. Only the person who used it could say whether it was good or bad. Otherwise, one couldn't blame others for being too strong and say that they were bad people. Seeing Li Zongjiu and the other two leave, the Sea Empress and the other two went down to investigate the situation of the rock snake. The rock snake's head was indeed smashed by a fist. The Niden that it had painstakingly cultivated was directly taken away by Li Zongjiu and destroyed. Zhang Xiaoyu didn't believe it. She used the long spear in her hand to stab it a few times, but found that she had no way to break the rock snake's body defense. It was like a diamond that was difficult to penetrate. Even after death, its defense is still so strong. Zhang Xiaoyu was shocked. This time, she guessed that she had gone astray. Now that the Niden had been taken away, it meant that the rock snake had lost its power to protect its body. Relatively speaking, its power was weaker. Zhang Xiaoyu should be able to easily penetrate the python's body. Who knew that the rock snake's body was still indestructible? Take the rock snake's body away. It's also a good material for refining magic treasures. The Sea Empress said directly. From the contact just now, it could be seen that the strength of the rock snake was not to be underestimated. It was also a real sovereign realm expert. Li Zongjiu actually had the strength to kill a sovereign realm expert. That's not right. That guy clearly didn't use Xian. He only used the strength of his body to achieve such an effect. The Sea Empress was shocked. What exactly was Li Zongjiu's fist made of? It was too terrifying. Fortunately, when she had just arrived at Qinggo City, she didn't have any conflict with Li Zongjiu. If she had a conflict with an expert like Li Zongjiu, the consequences would be unimaginable. Since there's nothing here for us, we'll immediately go to the other underground palaces to search. We can't let others take the lead. The Sea Empress said. Zhang Xiaoyu was also surprised and shocked. Then, she followed the Sea Empress and left the place. However, Zhang Xiaoyu still couldn't believe that Li Zongjiu actually had such a terrifying strength. That guy only knew how to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. He was shameless. Even if he had such strength, he must have used some kind of magic treasure to achieve it. Whether he's really capable or not, we'll only know after we fight. Just you wait. I, Zhang Xiaoyu, won't take this lying down so easily. Zhang Xiaoyu thought to herself. Li Zongjiu was even more unaware that he had offended Zhang Xiaoyu. He didn't do anything, so there was no need for her to do this. Chapter 12-18. Li Zongjiu and the others returned to Qinggo City. Tonight's trip was quite worthwhile. I'm sure you'll be in charge of dealing with the armored stone soldiers. Today, I'll help you refine this black lotus. Li Zongjiu said. What's this? I don't know the exact name, but you can refine it and improve your strength. As long as you absorb all the power in the black lotus, you won't be far from my realm. Li Zongjiu said. There were countless strange things born between heaven and earth. Li Zongjiu had only cultivated for 3,000 years, but in fact, he only occupied a small corner of the long river of history. There were more powerful existences that Li Zongjiu didn't know about. Although he didn't know what this thing was, Li Zongjiu was sure that this thing must have something to do with the resurrection of the Saint Martial Great Emperor. Since it was the means of the Saint Martial Great Emperor, they couldn't be sure. As for the situation, they could only know when Li Zongjiu reached the Saint Martial Great Emperor realm. Well, how do I refine it? Eat it directly? Su Mo didn't doubt him. Li Zongjiu wouldn't come to harm her. There was no need for that. With Li Zongjiu's cultivation, if he wanted to take her life, it would be a piece of cake. There was no need to go through so much trouble. Li Zongjiu helped Su Mo many times. Obviously, he regarded Su Mo as a good friend. Hold this lotus with both hands, then summon your fiery glass flower. Immediately, the two of them sat cross-legged in the practice room. Li Zongjiu sat behind Su Mo. Being in the same room as Li Zongjiu inevitably made Su Mo a little nervous. After all, they were no longer the little kids in White Blaze Mountain. Now, the two of them had grown up a lot. Concentrate. Li Zongjiu said. At this time, he didn't know what this girl was thinking. If this continued, it would be easy for something to happen. No matter how strong Li Zongjiu was, it wouldn't help. Hearing Li Zongjiu's reminder, Su Mo quickly collected her thoughts and stopped thinking about random things. At the same time, she blushed. Li Zongjiu treated her as a brother, but she actually, thinking of this made Su Mo felt quite ashamed. When Su Mo focused his mind, he suddenly felt a surge of energy rapidly surging within his body. It was as if his palms were holding a surging ocean. Boundless yuan power surged within his palms. Under Li Zongjiu's guidance, the energy within the black lotus was immediately drawn into Su Mo's body. Boom! Su's body was with the surging power. Activate your yuan formula. Li Zongjiu's words were transmitted to Su Mo's mind. Immediately, Su Mo activated her yuan formula without hesitation and integrated the power into her body. The fire glass flower floating above her head was also strengthened by the power of the black lotus, as if it was placed in a very nutritious environment. This time, her strength was completely raised. Su Mo could even feel that her strength was increasing rapidly. Originally, she was only at the mid-stage of the Yuan Monarch realm, but her strength quickly broke through the late-stage Yuan Monarch realm and directly rushed towards the Yuan Emperor realm. Under the guidance of Li Zongjiu, she didn't hesitate and directly broke through the barrier of the Yuan Emperor realm. Boom! Su Mo suddenly felt that the merit accumulated by her ancestors over the years seemed to have landed on her. She was too lucky to have broken through to the Yuan Emperor realm so easily. How could there be someone who could cheat so easily? Su Mo's Yuan force cultivation broke through to the third-grade Yuan Emperor realm. Ordinary people would need at least a few hundred years to cultivate, and even geniuses would need at least a few decades. However, with the help of Director Li, Su Mo easily achieved it in just one night. This was simply unheard of. At dawn, Li Zongjiu finally stored all the power in the Black Lotus into Su Mo's Dantian Sea of Qi. Next, Su Mo could only rely on himself to slowly refine it. The reason why it was stuck at this realm was because the fire glass flower had reached its limit. Your realm can't continue to increase because your yuan spirit has reached its limit. Next, not only do you have to cultivate your yuan force, but you also have to refine your yuan spirit. Only when you are one with your yuan spirit will you be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. Li Zongjiu said. Where did you learn all these skills? Su Mo was extremely excited. Li Zongjiu in front of him was simply a monstrous existence. From the moment he met Li Zongjiu, he knew that this guy was simply not an ordinary person. I learned it myself. Li Zongjiu did learn it himself. He had never been a disciple of any sect. He had always roamed the Jianghu on his own with his saber and spear. No one could have predicted that such a bizarre thing would happen to him after he was reborn. You're leaving. Su Mo seemed to feel Li Zongjiu's intention to leave. Sure enough, there was nothing that could stop Li Zongjiu. Yes, I'm leaving now. Li Zongjiu stood up and said. If Qi Yanran was in the untainted land, it was inevitable that she would be in danger. The dangers in the untainted land were not so simple. Even if he went there, he dared not say that he could escape unscathed. But for now, he still had the ability to protect himself. By the way, if you're in charge of pacifying these underground palaces, help me keep an eye on a person. He's my friend, Wang Jing. Li Zongjiu said. Although Li Zongjiu didn't know how Fatty Wang Jing was doing, he was sure that Fatty Wang Jing wouldn't die. Too many things had changed, and Li Zongjiu wasn't sure if Wang Jing would be alright. However, Wang Jing would definitely have a hand in the things inside the underground palace. Therefore, he had to remind Su Mo that they should take care of each other when the time came. Wang Jing, right? Don't worry, I'll keep it in mind. A person who could be called a friend by Li Zongjiu was certainly not an ordinary person. I'm leaving. After Li Zongjiu finished speaking, his figure disappeared directly. If it was before, Su Mo would have found it difficult to notice Li Zongjiu's departure. But now, at least he could feel that Li Zongjiu's speed was extremely fast, and only a small wave was set off in the space. It was precisely because of his fast speed that it gave people the feeling that he had disappeared from the place. So fast. I didn't expect that I would also reach the primitive emperor realm. Su Mo was also very excited. He immediately clenched his fists and rushed out. He must find someone to test his moves. Otherwise, he would not know how to control his strength. Chapter 12-19. After leaving Qinggo City, Li Zongjiu directly flew into the sky. It was as though he had torn the heavens apart. In just a little over 10 minutes, he had already arrived above Wuxia City. He returned to the Li family. Recently, Wuxia City had also been attacked by the stone-armored people. However, with the defensive strength of Wuxia City, it wasn't a problem for them to defend. It was also a training ground for the soldiers. Hey, why are you here, kid? Li Tianqing saw that Li Zongjiu had actually returned. This kid was simply like a ghost that appeared and disappeared mysteriously. He was everywhere. I came back to prepare. I'm going to go on a long trip, said Li Zongjiu. Then, he looked around the meeting room and saw that all the Li family members were present. Everyone put in a lot of effort in this battle because this was a good opportunity to make a name for themselves and build up their achievements. Therefore, they had to treat this as an opportunity. Normally, there wouldn't be such a good opportunity to contribute to the family. Now, it was very easy for the Li family to do anything. As long as the Li family casually made something, someone would send money over. There was no challenge at all. It wasn't easy for such a thing to happen. Of course, they had to fight to be the first to perform. If they didn't perform well, they might be suppressed by others. Who would know how powerful they were? Send them out to patrol. Li Tianqing said. Alright, you guys continue. Li Zongjiu nodded and then left hurriedly. Although it was very convenient to use mental strength to search, Li Zongzhou's cultivation level already had a feeling of returning to one's original state. He didn't need to use any unnecessary moves. Then, he would try his best not to use them. In the Black Water Forest, the Sky Blaze Lion was stepping on a stone-armored person. Moreover, there were a few Yuan beasts behind him. These meta beasts were all rank 6 meta beasts. They were equivalent to the Origin Emperor realm. Any one of them was no weaker than the Sky Blaze Python. There were a total of 3 meta beasts following behind the Sky Blaze Lion. These meta beasts were all subdued by the Sky Blaze Royal Lion. Of course, they had to take a good look around the huge Black Water Forest. Sometimes, they were simply too bored. Hence, they would capture some meta beasts to give them a good beating to exercise their muscles. Over time, most of these meta beasts were the overlords of the surrounding area. But now, they were scared and were ordered around by the Sky Blaze Lion all day. Suddenly, a figure landed behind the Sky Blaze Lion. The 3 rank 6 meta beasts immediately discovered the unfamiliar aura that had suddenly intruded. Who dared to barge into the territory of the Beast Emperor? Was simply seeking death. Immediately, a huge black bear stood up. With a roar, it swung its heavy bear paw at Li Zongzhou's head. However, before the bear paw could land on Li Zongzhou's head, it was kicked away by the Sky Blaze Lion. The pitiful black bear rolled a few times on the ground. In the end, it could only pat the dust off its butt and stand up slowly. It felt extremely wronged. It was clearly protecting its boss, but it was still kicked away by him. In any case, it was once an Emperor Realm expert. Why was it not given any face at all? The black bear naturally felt wronged. However, the Sky Blaze Lion did not care about this. It immediately crawled towards Li Zongzhou and laid on the ground. It used its head to nudge Li Zongzhou to show its submission. The 3 meta beasts at the side more or less had some spiritual intelligence. They could also tell that this weak person in front of them seemed to be their boss's boss. Follow me. Li Zongzhou brought the Sky Blaze Lion to a large open space. The 3 meta beasts behind him also followed him eagerly. Li Zongzhou glanced at them and ignored them. These meta beasts were strong, but their talents were ordinary. They could not enter Li Zongzhou's eyes. Hence, Li Zongzhou also ignored them. He did not have much interest in it. Anyway, the Sky Blaze Lion Emperor was just for fun. This is the inner core of a sovereign meta beast. It is extremely powerful. Consume it and I will help you refine it. After refining it, you should be able to speak human language. Li Zongzhou took out the inner core of the sky-soaring giant python. When the Niden was taken out, it immediately released an extremely alluring aura. The meta beasts stared at it with their eyes wide open. It seemed like their boss's boss was really an incredible person. The Sky Blaze Lion was naturally wild with joy. It sat on the ground obediently and waited for Li Zongzhou's next move. Li Zongzhou directly threw the inner core to the Sky Blaze Lion. The Sky Blaze Lion could not wait to open its mouth and swallow the inner core in one gulp. Immediately, there was a surge of turbulent energy in the Sky Blaze Lion's body. Li Zongzhou was already familiar with helping people refine things that could increase their cultivation. Hence, this time, it was very easy and smooth for him to refine the inner core of the sovereign meta beast. With the Sky Blaze Lion's strength, it would not be a problem for it to refine it alone. However, it would take too much time. Li Zongzhou could not wait until then. Hence, he helped the Sky Blaze Lion to refine the inner core. The 3 meta beasts nearby had envy in their eyes and saliva in their mouths. They sat on the ground blankly and looked at their boss's increasing aura with envy. Was it so blissful to be a boss? After 2 full days, the energy of the inner core was finally completely integrated into the Sky Blaze Lion's body. When the last bit of energy was completely integrated into the Sky Blaze Lion's body, the Sky Blaze Lion stood up angrily and roared. Roar! Along with the roar, a strong wave of energy burst out from its body. Li Zongjiu immediately retracted his yuan power and flew into the distance. Only the Sky Blaze Lion was left standing on the ground. If you don't want to be struck by lightning, hide further away. Li Zongjiu said indifferently. At this moment, the three meta beasts came to their senses. No wonder they felt uneasy. They quickly ran into the distance and disappeared in a flash. They hid even further away than Li Zongjiu. Their beastly nature was displayed without any concealment. Thunder clouds rolled in the sky. Terrifying thunder rumbled in the dark clouds. The clouds had already descended to a very low altitude. At this moment, one could clearly feel that all the living things in the black water forest were trembling. In front of the might of the heavens, they had no choice but to bow their heads and submit. Roar! A world shaking will burst out from the Sky Blaze Royal Lion's body and was released into the sky. It was like a terrifying aura had turned into a sharp sword and pierced the sky. Chapter 12:20. The Sky Blaze Lion roared towards the sky, and all the other primordial beasts knelt down. The Sky Blaze Lion was fearless in the face of the raging lightning that fell from the sky. It rushed towards the lightning. Boom! In an instant, the entire black water forest was filled with lightning. The lightning and fire that fell in all directions were rolling. Within 100 meters of the Sky Blaze Lion, everything had turned into a pile of ashes. The three rank 6 primordial beasts were dumbfounded by the terrifying power. It was too terrifying. If it was them, they wouldn't even be able to withstand one strike of such divine lightning. If they were struck, they would probably be roasted. The Sky Blaze Lion had already withstood 9 consecutive strikes of lightning. At the last moment, a horn grew out from between its eyebrows. The horn pointed towards the sky. When the 10th strike of lightning fell, it was absorbed by the horn that had just grown out. The primordial beast's aura filled the entire area. The primordial beasts that were released knelt down in the direction of the Sky Blaze Lion. The 3 primordial beasts also knelt down to show their submission. After the Sky Blaze Lion released its majestic aura, it came back to Li Zongjiu. Greetings, Master. The Sky Blaze Lion spoke in human language with a deep voice. Although its words weren't very clear, it could at least express its meaning clearly. Your royal bloodline has also awakened, right? Li Zongjiu asked. Speaking of the bloodline awakening, the Sky Blaze Lion was a little excited. At least the state of awakening was real. Instantly, it felt that its strength had increased by a lot. This was a great feeling for the Sky Blaze Lion. At the same time, it had also obtained many ancient inheritances. It was no longer the Sky Blaze Lion. It was a true primordial beast. His nickname was the Sky Blaze Beast. This was also the name that had been passed down from generation to generation in the Sky Blaze Lion's clan. The Sky Blaze Lion naturally loved this nickname. Moreover, the Heavenly Blaze Beast's sovereign strength had also broken through the supremacy realm and stepped into another level. It even had hopes of breaking away from the fate of the Origin Beast clan in the future and becoming an existence of a higher level. And all of this was because of the care of his master, Li Zongjiu. If it wasn't for Li Zongjiu, he wouldn't have the fortune he had today. I have to leave for a period of time. Help me look after Wuxia City. If there's even the slightest bit of damage, I'll come back and hold you accountable. If you perform well, I'll refine a form transformation pill for you and help you get rid of this Origin Beast body. Li Zongjiu said. The refinement of the form transformation pill was also where Li Zongjiu's pride lay in his previous life. God knows how many supreme primal beasts had begged for a form transformation pill from Li Zongjiu. However, Li Zongjiu didn't care about these people at all. He didn't give them any chance at all. If they wanted Li Zongjiu to help them, they would usually have to pay a huge price. After all, the Heavenly Blaze Beast Sovereign was nurtured by Wuxia, so it was only right for him to take care of it a little more. When he heard that there was still a chance for the form transformation pill, the inherited memories in his mind also told the heavenly blaze beast sovereign that the form transformation pill was a wonderful thing. Countless prime beasts wanted to get their hands on one, but those who knew how to refine this pill were basically all dead. There was simply no way to get their hands on it. However, its master actually knew how to refine the form transformation pill. This was simply too great for the heavenly blaze beast sovereign. Master, don't worry. With me around, Wuxia city will definitely not be harmed in the slightest. Although the heavenly blaze beast sovereign was a beast, it also understood how much blood Li Zhongjiu had poured into Wuxia city. Therefore, it naturally knew how important Wuxia city was to Li Zhongjiu. Very good. Keep a close eye on these little brothers of yours. If anything happens, they won't be able to bear the consequences even if they die. Li Zhongjiu said faintly as he glanced at those meta beasts. Clearly, these meta beasts hadn't been subjected to mind control, so their bestial instincts were still preserved. However, they had chosen to submit to the heavenly blaze beast sovereign. Who knew when they would go crazy and sneak into Wuxia city to eat, kill, or cause harm? This was all very likely to happen. Naturally, Li Zhongjiu had his reasons for reminding the heavenly blaze beast sovereign. Master, don't worry. The heavenly blaze beast sovereign said as it lowered its head. Li Zhongjiu nodded. Alright, I'll leave this place to you. I'm leaving. Li Zhongjiu didn't waste any more words. No matter how strong the heavenly blaze beast sovereign was, as long as it was under his mind control, it would have to obey Li Zhongjiu forever. Li Zhongjiu could help it become a beast sovereign, but he could also turn it into a corpse. Boss, who is this? Black Bear, who had been about to attack Li Zhongjiu, couldn't help but ask after Li Zhongjiu left. The other two meta beasts also looked at the heavenly blaze beast sovereign curiously. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. The few of you, go and keep a lookout. If any person or beast dares to approach Wuxia city, capture them and bring them to me. The heavenly blaze beast sovereign spoke directly. However, the meta beasts only roared. Clearly, they hadn't developed such high spiritual intelligence. A restriction was a restriction. They couldn't break free at all. Li Zhongjiu also headed straight for the elemental wilderness. To reach the elemental wilderness, one had to pass through the east of the Shengyan dynasty. They had to pass through countless meta beast forests and traverse countless mountains and rivers. Li Zhongjiu's speed wasn't simple. He was so fast that he disappeared into the sky in the blink of an eye. Boom! About 3 days later, a desert city appeared in front of him. Standing in the boundless wilderness of the desert, Li Zhongjiu felt a sense of melancholy when he saw the city. He had never felt this kind of melancholy before. To Li Zhongjiu, returning to this place was also a place full of memories. I'm finally back. Li Zhongjiu walked into the desert city. There was a violent sandstorm everywhere. This was a city formed by the experts of the desert. Many people who wanted to go to the elemental wilderness had to replenish their supplies here. Many things from the elemental wilderness were also sold here. As long as one left the desert city, it would be another world. The desert city would also become a frontline. In the past, Li Zhongjiu had offended many people and made many enemies in the desert city. However, that was the cause and effect of his previous life. In this life, as long as they didn't hurt Li Zhongjiu's family, he could pretend that nothing had happened. The desert city was controlled by the 4 big families. Chapter 12:21. There was a special phenomenon in Desert City, which was that no one knew if someone had a treasure on them. It was possible to obtain an extremely precious item from an inconspicuous person. Therefore, no one in the city could be underestimated. At the same time, one had to keep an eye on the people coming and going on the road. Killing and robbing were extremely common in this kind of place. As long as the other party suspected that you had a treasure on you, they would not hesitate to take you somewhere and kill you. They would rather kill the wrong person than let you go. One should not show off one's wealth. One had to deeply understand this principle here. If one was not confident in one's own strength, then one should not show off one's wealth carelessly. Other places might have the protection of the imperial court, but here, even if one died in a corner, one would not be discovered until many years later. Moreover, no one would know who one was. Li Zhongjiu stepped into Desert City, and a group of people came up to him. They were all wearing silk cloaks that dissipated heat and resisted heat waves. This kind of cloak was a good thing for passers-by. If one's cultivation was not enough, it would not take long for one to be directly dried out in the desert. Little brother, this must be your first time here. Bring a special sunscreen cloak with you. I guarantee that you'll feel as cool as taking a stroll by the lake. The surrounding heat won't be able to invade you at all. The people who came up to Li Zhongjiu actually started to promote their cloaks. However, he had seen this kind of thing many times before. They were not sincere in selling things. A sunscreen cloak like this could not be worth much. What they really cared about was the strength that one displayed when making a move. If one was not careful and exposed their wealth, or if one's own whereabouts were discovered, then one would be a big fat sheep for them. The Mo family, one of the 4 major families in Desert City, was the best at doing this kind of shady business. They controlled all the lifelines in Desert City. The 4 major families were more like 4 tyrants, firmly entrenched in Desert City. If you don't have enough ability, your fate is basically sealed after you enter the city. However, those who came to Desert City were basically prepared. At the very least, they had done their homework and knew where this place was. That was why they came. Just like how the retired soldiers of the Shengyan dynasty would come here in groups, they naturally didn't dare to provoke such people. When the time came, it was hard to say who would be at a disadvantage. No need, Li Zhongjiu gently waved his hand and pushed the person in front of him dozens of meters away. He couldn't be too low-key either. If he was targeted, it would be troublesome. Therefore, Li Zhongjiu used a few tricks to force these people back. Immediately, the few of them understood that the strength of the young man in front of them was not simple. Moreover, he was deeply aware of the tricks in the city. Naturally, they did not dare to provoke such a person. Young hero, please go ahead. After Li Zhongjiu left, they reported this person's situation to their superiors. Boss, this kid is a little arrogant, isn't he? A few people who had just joined couldn't help but say. In the past 2 days, they had dealt with a lot of people and gained a lot of benefits. Therefore, when they saw a new face, they inevitably felt a little excited and wanted to imitate him. However, just now, their boss directly asked Li Zhongjiu to leave, which made them a little puzzled. What do you know? How many times have I told you that you can't judge a person by his appearance? This is Desert City. Even a 3-year-old child has the strength to kill a Yuan monarch. It's absolutely not surprising. Didn't you see that guy's expression and attitude just now? He wasn't curious about Zhuo Wei's things at all. His gaze was firm. Obviously, it's not his first time in Desert City. The aura on his body is so calm. The temperature around our desert city is much higher than ordinary places. However, there isn't the slightest fluctuation of yuan qi on his body, nor is there the slightest trace of sweat. How can such a person be simple? While he was analyzing, the burly man's heart was also nervous. In fact, he had not thought of so many details just now. Only when he really recalled it did he understand that Li Zhongjiu, who he had just met, seemed to be really terrifying. The people below felt their scalps tingle when they heard their boss's explanation. However, there were still some people who did not take it seriously. They thought that Li Zhongjiu was just a child and could not be very powerful. Don't act recklessly. Report this person to the family head. The burly man had a very keen insight into such a person. When he saw Li Zhongjiu, he knew that this guy was definitely not simple and had to pay attention to him. The reason Li Zongjiu came to Desert City was because of this. It was also to search for information. In Desert City, the Gu family was in charge of the information business. Even the Rain Tower had no way of doing business in Desert City. They relied on the wilderness, and who knew how many experts there were. If they rashly angered an unknown expert, there might be irreversible consequences. When that happened, it would be too late for regrets. The Gu family had set up an information exchange hall in Desert City called the Desert Eagle. Here, information could be disseminated at will and precious information could be exchanged between each other. Within the range of the Desert Eagle, it was guaranteed that one's information could be exchanged safely. However, after leaving, there was no guarantee. Of course, there was also a very expensive transaction fee. Almost every transaction was at a sky-high price. Of course, there would also be various kinds of information that would be publicized. If one wanted to buy specific information, they would also have to pay a fee. It was the same as the Rain Tower's business, but the range of the Desert Eagle was the entire wilderness. Of course, the Desert Eagle, which had been painstakingly developed, was not that simple. Li Zongjiu directly walked into the Desert Eagle. In the huge hall, there were all kinds of people sitting in a disorderly manner. There were even many people waiting at the entrance. A day trip to the outer ring of the wilderness only costs 3,000 purple yuan. A group of 10 people. Now, we are short of 3 people. Little brother, do you want to get in the car? We can set off immediately. We have absolute armed forces to protect you. A short, thin man came in front of Li Zongjiu. Without waiting for Li Zongjiu to refuse, he had already started to introduce his business in detail. However, Li Zongjiu did not say anything. He directly swept past the thin man and walked towards a service window. The skinny man wanted to chase after Li Zongjiu and question him. There was a price to pay for being rude in Desert City. However, when he saw the direction Li Zongjiu was heading, he stopped in his tracks and did not continue forward. This is the kid's first time here. He actually has the guts to go to that window. Thinking of the services provided by the window, of course, the price included, the thin man's heart trembled slightly. He did not dare to continue to disturb him. It would not be long before he was thrown out. I want to collect information. Li Zongjiu walked in front of the window and said indifferently. Behind the window of the counter, a pair of slender legs wearing leather boots casually rested on the table. She was flipping through the Desert City's Desert Daily. This thing was also published by the Desert Eagle. Its purpose was to collect a day's worth of fresh information and then distribute it free of charge. Sometimes, there would be some information left on it. Naturally, people would come looking for it. Such an idea was simply brilliant. For example, there was a piece of information recorded in the Desert Daily. Yesterday, a turquoise water spiritual snake appeared in the outer ring of the wilderness. This turquoise water spiritual snake was a growth type rank 7 spiritual beast. Supreme level. Of course, they did not dare to have such thoughts about the turquoise water spiritual snake. However, after the news of the turquoise water spiritual snake, there would be the appearance of grade 8 spiritual herbs. The existence of this grade 8 spiritual herb was enough to attract many people to come to the Desert Eagle in search of information about the jade water spiritual snake. In this way, wouldn't there be enough customers to come to the Desert Eagle? Most of the people who were present today were here for specific information about the turquoise water spiritual snake. If you want to buy information, go to the hall. This is not a place for you to come. The owner of the pair of slender legs did not even put down the newspaper in her hands. She spoke so arrogantly that she did not even intend to look at the person in front of her. I want to find everything, including information about the Peacock Deity Palace. Li Zongjiu ignored the other party's drive and continued speaking. Whoever can provide useful information will be rewarded with elixirs. Li Zongjiu directly placed a bottle of elixirs on the window. You only have 3 days. If you have any information, come and inform me directly. After Li Zongjiu placed the bottle of elixirs on the table, he turned and left. This arrogance made Gu Wei frown. She immediately put down the newspaper in her hands. When she looked over, she found that Li Zongjiu had already disappeared. On the table, there was a porcelain bottle. Just from the looks of it, the cost of this porcelain bottle was not cheap. The patterns on the surface were not easy to buy. This was a special elixir bottle. Gu Wei immediately opened the elixir bottle. She was immediately shocked by the contents of the bottle. Chapter 12:22. There were indeed elixirs in the bottle, but they were all high-grade elixirs. There were at least a dozen 6th-grade elixirs in it. Gu Wei immediately put the bottle away. Level 6 pills were hard currency no matter where they were placed. If this thing were to be distributed, it would definitely be something that would stun everyone present. It was actually very simple for the Desert Eagle to handle this matter. All he had to do was to pay the money. However, this was the first time Gu Wei had seen such an arrogant person after working at the counter for so long. Was he not afraid that she would go back on her words? If the Gu family behind them were to really take action, they might not be afraid of anyone in this desert city. What can you do if I really take your share? What can you do? Gu Wei just thought about it, but she did not really think about taking the elixirs for herself. Since the other party dared to do so, it meant that he was not afraid of her taking his elixirs. What's more, those who went out to do business would be too short-sighted if they only focused on this little bit. The reason why the Gu family could have today's status in Desert City was because they were far-sighted and would not only care about the gains and losses in front of them. Jia-san, have you written down what that guy said just now? Yes, young Mississippi, go and distribute it quickly. Gu Wei did not delay at all. It had always been their principle to do things with money. Therefore, after receiving benefits from Li Zongjiu, this matter naturally had to be done properly. Otherwise, who knew what Li Zongjiu's background was? If they could not complete the task, they might ask for the elixirs back. Wouldn't that be a great loss? Let me see. After Jia-san finished listing out all the information, Gu Wei took it over and took a look. Sparrow Divine Palace. Gu Wei suddenly frowned. She grew up in the border of the untainted land, so she was basically familiar with the things in the untainted land. However, the name Sparrow Divine Palace was still very unfamiliar to her. However, the style of the name sounded like it belonged to a mysterious sect in the untainted land. No one would believe that there were still various sects in the untainted land. The existence of these sects was extremely mysterious. It was even hard to believe that these people could survive in the untainted land. However, if one were to talk about the sects that existed in the untainted land, they seemed to be completely uninterested in the disputes of the secular world. In terms of realm and level, they were much higher than ordinary people. In their eyes, there was only the world in front of them. He was good at fighting with heaven and earth. Even the terrifying meta beasts that existed in the untainted land were nothing in their eyes when they were faced with such mysterious existences. The people in the desert city were also very tactful. They did not deliberately offend these legendary existences. After all, they were all focused on their cultivation and did not wish to be disturbed by the secular world. These mysterious existences often appeared and were not illusory. There was once a person who encountered danger in the untainted land. When his life was in danger, he saw a white-robed immortal descending from the sky and killing a giant beast that was comparable to a fiend god with a single slash of his sword. Similar things happened frequently. Therefore, it was more certain that there were more mysterious existences in the untainted land. Spread the news. Try your best to find the news of the Sparrow Divine Palace. The reward will be calculated in terms of elixirs. The highest reward will be a 7th grade elixir. What Li Zongjiu gave just now was only a part of the reward. The other part belonged to them. In the end, they would need Li Zhongjiu to pay a fee before they could give the specific information to him. As for where to find Li Zhongjiu, it was not difficult for the Gu family to do something in the desert city. As long as Li Zhongjiu was in the desert city, they would definitely be able to find him. If they did not have this ability, they would not have opened this information trading center. However, when they were in the Desert Eagle Center, some people had their eyes on Li Zhongjiu. Those who could walk to the window dedicated to releasing information were not simple people. The price inside was not simple. A little bit of information was enough to make you bankrupt. In the end, if you could not take out something of equivalent value, you would have to wait for your limbs to be chopped off. For Li Zhongjiu to have the courage to walk to this window, it already showed that his strength was not bad, and he had a little courage. Moreover, after seeing the actions of Gu Wei and the others, it seemed that the things that Li Zhongjiu gave were also quite valuable, otherwise, they would not have directly started working so quickly. After the matter was settled, a few people immediately followed Li Zhongjiu. They followed behind him. After they found the place where Li Zhongjiu stayed, they would kill Li Zhongjiu at night and directly take his head. Li Zhongjiu, on the other hand, walked into a restaurant in the desert city. This restaurant was called the Elemental Restaurant. It was said that most of the ingredients used were transported from the untainted land. Only this restaurant could process the skin and meat of the elemental beasts and make delicious dishes. Li Zhongjiu also stayed here for a period of time in his previous life. At that time, he did not have the money to pay the bill. After a few days of eating and drinking, he actually spent an astronomical amount of money. Later, he caused a scene. The experience of his previous life was not mentioned for the time being. After all, the situation now was different, and the same result would not happen again. But sometimes, history was surprisingly similar. Get out of the way. My young master has booked the whole place. When Li Zhongjiu was about to walk in, suddenly two guards in black clothes appeared. The material of this black clothes was quite precious. At least in this desert city, it was a symbol of status. One of them stopped Li Zhongjiu. Not only did he stop him, but he also put the scabbard in his hand on Li Zhongjiu's shoulder. It seemed that if Li Zhongjiu made the slightest move, he would immediately regret coming here. On the other hand, the other person held a saber in one hand and crossed it in front of his body. He looked at Li Zhongjiu with a cold smile. Obviously, this person was more powerful than the other person. Therefore, the first threshold was given to the other person. If Li Zhongjiu did not listen, there was a possibility that he would die today. When the surrounding people saw that the elemental wine was blocked by the two fierce-looking people, they pointed and talked non-stop. In fact, the elemental restaurant did not have a reservation system. But if you have the ability to stop other guests at the door, you are amazing. Aren't these two people the Feng family's cold saber demon? Bring these two people here. It should be the young master of the Feng family who is holding a banquet in this restaurant. I don't know where they come from. Who knows? Anyway, their background is definitely not small. Originally, some people wanted to go forward, but after seeing this scene, they chose to retreat and did not dare to come closer. They thought that it would be better to eat somewhere else. Who is the young master of the Feng family? Is he awesome? Shoo, brother, you should speak softly. If someone hears you, they will come and chop you up in minutes. I won't be able to live either. The young master of the Feng family is one of the 4 big families in the desert city. Don't you think he is awesome? And I also heard that the young master of the Feng family seems to have a relationship with a sect in the elemental wilderness recently. Maybe if it goes well, he will directly enter the sect in the elemental wilderness. So powerful. Li Zhongjiu glanced at the person in front of him and understood the rules of the elemental wilderness restaurant. If the restaurant was really booked in advance, then it would be better to come back tomorrow. After all, it would not be good if you directly went forward and broke the rules set by the restaurant. However, the elemental wilderness restaurant did not have the rule of booking the entire restaurant, so Li Zongjiu did not show any mercy. He raised his hand, put his fingers together, and pointed directly at the strong man in black in front of him. The strong man in black did not expect that Li Zongjiu would dare to make a move. However, when he wanted to dodge, he felt that it was too late. Although he could see with his eyes, his body could not move at all. Chi! Li Zongjiu's finger poked a big hole between the man's eyebrows. You are courting death. Seeing this, the other swordsman behind him directly pulled out the long saber in his hand. However, before the saber was completely out of the scabbard, his movements had already stopped. Plop! His body fell directly to the ground, and there was also a bloody hole between his eyebrows. Just like that, his life disappeared. On the other hand, Li Zongjiu calmly withdrew his hand. He stood with his hands behind his back and swaggered into the restaurant. When the passers-by saw this scene, their eyes widened one after another. What? This cold-faced baleful blade is a famous expert in the desert city. Their sabers are famous for being fast. They are actually dead. Who is that kid? He actually killed the two of them without batting an eyelid. Some people who saw this were shocked, and some even turned pale with fright. It seemed that another fierce character had arrived in the city. Otherwise, the cold-faced baleful blade brothers in front of them had been in the city for a long time, and had made a name for themselves. Now, they were hired by the Feng family with a large sum of money, but now, they were easily defeated by a mysterious youth. It was very shocking. When the people who had been tailing Li Zongjiu from the Desert Eagle saw this scene, they felt as if there was a fish bone stuck in their throats. They were so shocked that they were speechless. Their figures continuously retreated. They did not dare to accept this order. This was simply too horrifying. Unexpectedly, even the cold-faced saber devil and the other two were killed in an instant. The strongest big brother did not even have the chance to draw his saber. Li Zongjiu stepped into the Desolation restaurant. Immediately, a waiter came forward to greet him. However, out of curiosity, he glanced at the door. The Feng family's young master had ordered people to guard the door, and did not allow anyone to come close. How could someone walk in unscathed? Sir, please take a seat. What would you like to eat? Take a look at the menu. Immediately, the waiter saw the two corpses on the ground and was shocked. He immediately understood that Li Zongjiu, who had just walked in, was actually a fierce character. He absolutely could not be neglected. Chapter 12:23. After flipping through a few pages of the menu, Li Zongjiu ordered a few of his favorite dishes. The chef of this restaurant was pretty good. If there was a chance, he would let the people from the Divine Chef Institute come here to practice and learn some skills. I'm sorry, sir. The braised shark's fin you ordered is sold out today. It has been bought by the customer upstairs. The waiter glanced at the dish Li Zongjiu had ordered and said with a troubled look on his face. Oh. Is it ready? Li Zongjiu glanced at the waiter. Not yet. Our braised shark's fin is made from a 6th-grade yuan beast, Arctic fish. It takes half an hour from the time it's taken out of the wok to the time it's served. It can't be ready so quickly. Then when it's done, bring it to my table. Li Zongjiu said faintly. Also, the two corpses at the door should belong to the people upstairs, right? If you send them to them, it'll ruin your reputation. Hearing Li Zongjiu's words, the waiter had a troubled expression on his face. If there's anything, just tell him to come to me. Li Zongjiu said. The waiter didn't know what was going on in front of him, but he couldn't just leave this matter hanging here. Li Zongjiu was able to kill people without alerting anyone, but he was able to do so. It meant that his strength was not simple. Perhaps he was here for the eldest young master of the Feng family upstairs. No matter what, he couldn't let this be his bad luck. Immediately, the waiter hurriedly moved the corpse away. At the same time, He quickly ran upstairs and reported everything that happened downstairs to young Master Feng's personal bodyguard, who was also young Master Feng's housekeeper. Young Master is talking to a distinguished guest inside. What can I do for you? Young Master Feng's butler was called Yuan Ming. He had always kept a low profile in the city. However, this person called Yuan Ming had once survived for an entire month in the untainted wilderness. Although no one knew how Yuan Ming had managed to survive, he was already considered a top-notch existence to be able to do so. Who would dare to say that they could survive in the untainted land for a month and come out unscathed? Basically, if those who entered the untainted land did not return within 3 days, there was basically no hope for them to come back alive. The waiter told Yuan Ming about what happened downstairs. When Yuan Ming heard this, he immediately frowned. The two of you, wait here. No one is allowed to disturb the young master. The two of you, follow me. Yes, sir. Yuan Ming ordered 2 experts to stay behind to serve him. If this young master wanted to do something, he would need someone to be at his beck and call. It was impossible to transfer everyone away. When Yuan Ming walked down the stairs, he saw a person sitting peacefully in the hall, drinking wine and eating a few cold dishes that had been served. He seemed to be free and at ease. However, Yuan Ming's focus was not on this. He was trying to see through Li Zhongjiu's cultivation, but he found that he could not see through Li Zhongjiu's cultivation. On the contrary, Li Zhongjiu's body revealed a dangerous aura. This dangerous aura was very faint, but Li Zhongjiu had not really taken action yet. If he really felt the danger, it would be too late. Even if he wanted to escape, it would be too late. Why is there no one in such a great restaurant? Could it be that its reputation is undeserved? Just as Yuan Ming was about to step forward and test Li Zhongjiu, he saw a young man swagger in through the door. Looking at the situation in front of him, he sat down at the table next to him. Boss, give me 2 jugs of strong wine and a few plates of your signature dishes. I heard that your braised shark's fin is very good. Give me 3 plates. The man only had a black feather fan in his hand. He did not carry any other defensive items. He was dressed very simply and did not look at the menu when he sat down. When the waiter came in to serve tea, he asked the waiter. I came all the way to your restaurant. Why are there so few people? Is this an authentic elemental wilderness restaurant? Sir, don't worry. Of course, this is an authentic elemental wilderness restaurant. There is no other restaurant. That's good. I came here this time especially for the sake of tasting the shark fin here. I heard that it's made from a grade 6 origin beast, Arctic dark ice fish, and it's extremely delicious. You must serve me a few plates today. It doesn't matter how much it costs. I have plenty of money. The man said. Oh, sir, I'm really sorry. The braised shark's fin has been ordered by other customers. It's being stewed now. It's being stewed. It hasn't been served yet, right? Come to my table in a while. Tell them that there's no more. I'll pay you double. The man patted the waiter's shoulder and said. Then, he threw a bag of purple yuan to the waiter and gave him a look, indicating that he should hurry up and take care of this matter. Dear guests, I'm really just an employee. Since the 3 of you are here, please have a good discussion about who should eat the shark's fin. The waiter could not make up his mind. It seemed that the 3 of them could not be offended, so he might as well let them settle it themselves. Aren't all 3 of you great gods here? You're all here. Yuan Ming glanced at the 2 of them and finally fixed his eyes on Li Zhongjiu. Did you kill the people of my Feng family? Yuan Ming took a step forward and did not get too close to Li Zhongjiu. At least, he had to keep a relatively safe distance. Well said. Li Zhongjiu looked at Yuan Ming and said. Yuan Ming was shocked. Li Zhongjiu's indifferent tone gave the feeling that he did not put the Feng family in his eyes at all. Such temperament was naturally not something that Yuan Ming could compare with. Obviously, the other party knew about the Feng family but did not care. He did not even put them in his eyes. Those two were vulgar and must have offended you. Killing them is just killing them. However, my family's young master is upstairs today and has important matters to discuss with your esteemed guest. I hope that you can give us some face and move to Soaring Cloud Restaurant. All the expenses will be on our Feng family's head. In addition, I will personally bring the desolate restaurant's braised shark fin to pay a visit tomorrow. To express my apologies for today. Yuan Ming said. The fame of the Soaring Cloud restaurant in this desert city was only second to that of the Desolation restaurant. The dishes there were equally exquisite. Oh. So polite. Li Zongjiu did not expect Yuan Ming in front of him to be so polite. Even Li Zongjiu would be embarrassed to make trouble for him. After all, the other party had already made things clear, and his attitude was relatively upright. He did not give off the feeling of being arrogant. Those who could survive in this desert city were indeed different. Chapter 12:24. Alright, since you have such a good attitude, I won't argue with you today. Li Zongjiu said. He got up and prepared to leave. Of course, he handed over the accounts on the table to Yuan Ming. Since he had already paid so much, he didn't care about it anymore. Seeing that Li Zongjiu was willing to let it go, Yuan Ming finally felt relieved. Yuan Ming heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Fortunately, Li Zongjiu did not continue to pursue the matter. Otherwise, he did not know how to resolve the matter today. However, just as Li Zongjiu turned around, the situation changed again. A cold voice came from the stairs. Wait, you killed my men, Feng Jianshan, and you want to leave just like that? Feng Jianshan. When Yuan Ming heard the voice, he immediately turned around and looked at Feng Jianshan, who was standing behind him just now. It was the young master of the Feng family, Feng Jianshan. Yuan Ming knew that things weren't going well. He quickly stepped forward and wanted to explain the situation clearly to Feng Jianshan. However, Feng Jianshan directly looked at Yuan Ming with cold eyes. My men were killed by an outsider, and you still want to apologize to this outsider. Yuan Ming, I think you are getting worse and worse. Tomorrow, go to the account room to get your reward and leave the Feng family. My Feng family doesn't need cowards. Feng Jianshan spoke in an arrogant tone, not giving Yuan Ming a chance to explain. After all, Feng Jianshan was here today to discuss the opportunity to join a sect of the desolate region. However, after the discussion, such a situation occurred. How could Feng Jianshan get out of this situation? They had to rebuild the Feng family's prestige and prestige. Boy, kneel down and kowtow to me 18 times. Destroy your own cultivation and then leave Desert City. Don't let me see you again. This way, you can still keep your life. Feng Jianshan pointed at Li Zongjiu and said. The four experts under him also hurried to Li Zongjiu's side and surrounded Li Zongjiu. Obviously, if Li Zongjiu didn't do as he was told, he would immediately cripple Li Zongjiu. And even if Li Zongjiu did so, in the end, Li Zongjiu would still be killed. These people would never show any mercy. They only needed to kill Li Zongjiu in order to restore their family's dignity. If that's the case, there's nothing I can do. It's not that I don't want to give you face. Li Zongjiu looked at Yuan Ming and said. Just now, he did it for Yuan Ming's sake. After all, Yuan Ming had already done so much, so there was no need to go overboard at all. In the underworld, if someone respected me, I would return the favor tenfold. But now, it wasn't a matter of respect. Since Feng Jianshan wanted to stir up trouble, Li Zongjiu certainly had to play with him to his heart's content. Brother, the 10 kings of hell of the Feng family are all experts of the primitive emperor realm. Moreover, the old ancestor of the Feng family has been traveling back and forth in the untainted land all year round. It's not as simple as you think. Think twice. Seeing that he couldn't persuade Feng Jianshan, Yuan Ming looked at Li Zongjiu, hoping to find a breakthrough through Li Zongjiu. If both sides were to fight, there would be considerable losses between them. However, it was really unnecessary for them to do so for the sake of face. Li Zongjiu didn't need to die. He just needed to leave this place. If Li Zongjiu wanted to leave today, Feng Jianshan and the others wouldn't be able to stop him. With regards to Li Zongjiu's strength, Yuan Ming still had this bit of confidence. What happens next has nothing to do with you. Li Zongjiu waved his hand at Yuan Ming and a force pushed Yuan Ming away. When Yuan Ming's feet landed on the ground, he was surprised to find that he was actually outside Desert City. What? How could this be? When Yuan Ming saw the changes around him, his heart felt as though it had been hammered in the chest by a sledgehammer. This caused Yuan Ming's heart to be completely shaken. It's over. Yuan Ming understood in an instant. Now, he finally understood why he felt a sense of danger when he looked at Li Zongjiu. It was because Li Zongjiu was clearly a Supreme Being expert. Such a young Supreme Being expert was either an expert from a top sect in the Untainted Land, or he was a beast venerable of the Untainted Land. No matter which one it was, it would be a disaster for the Feng family. It's over now. Poor Feng family. But I'll leave now. I've already repaid the Feng family's kindness. Yuan Ming murmured. Then, he turned around and walked in the opposite direction without hesitation. He did not continue to return to Desert City. Even if he did, he would die. Li Zongjiu was saving him. At least he managed to keep his life. Naturally, Yuan Ming would not continue to waste his life. At this moment, in the Untainted Land restaurant, the man in black who came in later moved to the side, as if he was afraid that when Li Zongjiu and his gang fought, blood would splash on him. It wasn't easy to get these new clothes. If they were stained with blood, wouldn't it be very unjust? Feng Jianshan saw Yuan Ming, who was still there a moment ago, disappear with a wave of Li Zongjiu's hand. His eyes widened. Damn it. It seems that you are determined to be an enemy of the Feng family. Kill him. Feng Jianshan said faintly. He waved his hand and ordered the people around him to attack. Although the four experts beside him were not Yuan emperors, they were already at the peak of Yuan monarch. They had also trained in Untainted Land. Their skills must be excellent. Immediately, the four of them formed a killing formation and unleashed their Yuan Qi at Li Zongjiu at the same time. Moreover, the four of them also unleashed their Yuan spirit power at the same time. Although they were only at the Yuan monarch realm, they already knew how to apply their Yuan spirit power to weapons and form this kind of local power. In this way, the power of the origin spirit would be used more effectively, and its power would definitely become more powerful. However, no matter how profound these people's combat skills were, it was useless against Li Zongjiu. They were all displaying their slight skills in front of an expert. The four sharp swords of the opponent attacked at the same time. Li Zongjiu stretched out his hand and slapped 4 times consecutively, breaking the 4 sharp swords easily. Bang! 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 The broken heads of the swords swept towards them. 2 of them reacted slower and their throats were directly pierced by the broken swords. However, the other 2 reacted slightly faster, but their shoulders were still pierced by the swords. Immediately, blood splattered out. Swoosh! Li Zongjiu waved his hand and pierced through the heads of the remaining 2 people with the power of a flying knife. Bang bang! The Soul Slayer flying knife easily pierced through the temples of the 2 people. Li Zongjiu's finger moved gently, and the Soul Slayer flying knife directly rushed towards Feng Jianshan. Feng Jianshan growled when he saw this. Immediately, a black eagle appeared behind Feng Jianshan. The eagle used its wings to block Feng Jianshan's body, and it began to spin rapidly. Boom! Immediately, an earth-shattering aura erupted. Boom! No matter how big Feng Jianshan's movement was, Li Zhongjiu's flying knife still easily pierced through. Boom! Feng Jianshan's aura dissipated. However, it wasn't Feng Jianshan who stood in his original position. Instead, it was an old man in a black and white robe. The old man used 2 fingers to clamp down on Li Zhongjiu's soul cutter flying knife, while his other hand pushed Feng Jianshan behind him. Although he looked very calm on the surface, there was a trace of shock in the old man's eyes. His heart had long been set off a stormy sea. Even under his calm expression, he clenched his teeth and barely managed to maintain the calm situation in front of him. Fellow Taoist, I am Bei Zizai of the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. Can you give this old man some face? Little friend Feng has been chosen by an elder of the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect to be his last disciple. Please be magnanimous. Bei Zizai settled in his heart for a while before he calmed down. Otherwise, the aura in his body would have directly forced him to vomit blood. He endured for a while before he dared to speak. He was not pretending to be cool here. Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. When Li Zhongjiu heard this name, the expression on his face suddenly became very strange. The relationship between the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect and Li Zhongjiu was really endless. It was difficult to explain clearly in a few words. Of course, the final result was that Li Zhongjiu destroyed the so-called Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. Originally, the past grudges were nothing. After all, they did not know each other now. Because of the prosperity of the Li family, they had long forgotten these things. In Li Zhongjiu's heart, there was even a feeling of amnesty in the world. Let bygones be bygones, but who knew that the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect in front of him would directly hit the muzzle of the gun? He tried again, but failed. Therefore, the expression on Li Zhongjiu's face was a bit strange. When Bei Zizai saw the expression on Li Zhongjiu's face, he was also surprised. Could it be that Li Zhongjiu in front of him had heard of the name of the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect? If he had heard of it, then everything would be simple. Since he knew of the name of the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect, then the next thing would be much easier. Seems like you have heard of the name of the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. This old man is not talented, but I am the chief elder of the outer sect of the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. Today's matter is purely a misunderstanding. Why should we hurt our friendship over such a small matter? Bei Zizai obviously wanted to use his name to settle this matter. Although Feng Jianshan was not convinced, he did not dare to speak up at this moment. He just stood behind Bei Zizai and did not say anything. Outer sect elder, right? Fine, I'll give you some face. Kid, if you kneel in front of me and kowtow 999 times, then cut off your third leg, I'll let you go. How about that? I'm being merciful, right? Chapter 1225. Li Zhongjiu's words were also quite sincere. Initially, Li Zhongjiu thought that it was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. After all, Feng Jianshan was still a child. If this lesson could make him turn over a new leaf, Li Zhongjiu would have done a good thing. Therefore, Li Zhongjiu also chose to do a good thing for the first time. Even he himself did not expect that his temper could become so good now. If it was in the past, he would have already taken Feng Jianshan's head and gone to the Feng family to cause trouble. Even this Bei Zizai in front of him would not have a good ending. Li Zhongjiu would also be killed. Sigh, how can I be so kind now? I don't even recognize myself anymore. At this moment, Li Zhongjiu also forced himself to act in his heart. For such a change, Li Zhongjiu's heart was also a little melancholy. However, it was obvious that the other party did not want to accept Li Zhongjiu's kindness. Feng Jianshan's face was gloomy and he did not speak. Li Zhongjiu's request was better to directly end Feng Jianshan's life. Similarly, Bei Zizai's face did not have a good expression. Looking at Li Zhongjiu in front of him, his face was extremely cold. This Li Zhongjiu was clearly teasing him. Bei Zizai, why do you have to make things difficult for this lowly kid in front of you? I have already released my Feng family's signal. In a moment, all of them will arrive. Feng Jianshan looked at Li Zongjiu with an ominous premonition in his heart. At least, he would not be able to block the flying knife just now. If it were not for Deacon Bei's help, he would probably be seriously injured at this moment. Sir, are you not giving face to my compassionate cloud's sacred sect? How could Bei Zizai get off the stage? He was still holding Li Zongjiu's flying knife in his hand. It wasn't that Bei Zizai didn't want to return the dagger to Li Zongjiu, but the dagger gave him a strange feeling. It was as if he let go of it, the dagger would attack him again without hesitation. Naturally, he would return the knife to Li Zongjiu after the negotiation. At the very least, he had to make sure that Li Zongjiu would not mess around. Is the compassionate cloud saint sect that great? Li Zongjiu frowned and said indifferently. Feng Jianshan and Bei Zizai were enraged when they heard Li Zongjiu's impudent words. Little brother, let me give you a piece of advice. It's fine if you make fun of me, but if you dare to insult the compassionate cloud saint sect, believe me, you will regret it. Bei Zizai said coldly. Even after saying these words, he felt that he was full of vigor. If he had the confidence to kill Li Zongjiu, he wouldn't have wasted so much time talking to Li Zongjiu. He would have rushed forward and smashed Li Zongjiu into minced meat when Li Zongjiu was being arrogant. Is that so? I like to insult your compassionate cloud saint sect. Sorry, I'm not targeting you. I'm saying that your compassionate cloud saint sect is a rubbish sect. What can you do about it? Li Zongjiu waved his hand and said. At this time, the shopkeeper of the Great Desolation restaurant heard Li Zongjiu's words from afar. His face turned extremely ugly. He originally wanted to stop the fight, but when he heard Li Zongjiu's words, he knew that it was too late. It's over, it's over. My Great Desolation restaurant is going to be a bloodbath again. The shopkeeper thought for a while and decided that it was better for him not to show up. Therefore, he returned to his small room and went to sleep peacefully. He also hoped that these people wouldn't tear down his restaurant. However, all the losses would be settled with the Feng family. Being able to open such a restaurant in the desert city meant that such a day would definitely come. There must be enough strength behind it to ensure that the Great Desolation restaurant could continue to operate normally. Those who insult the sect, die. Bei Zizai's eyes suddenly burst out with monstrous killing intent. His aura was also released. 6th grade Primitive Emperor. With such strength, being able to sit as an outer sect elder of the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect meant that he had some means. One should know that the sect master of the Mystic Yuan sect was only a mid-level primitive emperor. Immediately, Bei Zizai prepared to throw the flying knife in his hand towards Li Zongjiu and blast Li Zongjiu's head with it. However, when Bei Zizai's finger left the flying knife, he found that the power he exerted on the flying knife seemed to be swallowed by the flying knife. Swish! The Soul Slayer flying knife directly spun and flew towards Bei Zizai's palm. This time, the speed was several times faster than before. Bei Zizai's right hand fingers were directly cut off by the Soul Slayer flying knife. Bei Zizai had already raised his palm, preparing to use the Supreme Palm technique of the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect to smash Li Zongjiu into pieces. However, in the blink of an eye, all 5 of Bei Zizai's fingers were cut off by the Soul Slayer flying knife. Ah! My fingers! Bei Zizai looked at his bare palm. In the next second, the Soul Slayer flying knife continued to spin. Immediately, Bei Zizai's arm was like a fruit vendor on the street peeling pears. The skin and flesh on his arm were easily cut off. Blood splattered on the ground, and the bones of his arm could be clearly seen. All of this happened in an instant. Even the protective Yuan energy in Bei Zizai's body did not have the slightest movement. It was simply too late to resist the power of the Soul Slayer flying knife, and the flesh on his arm was already cut off. Only white bones appeared in front of his eyes. What? Seeing this scene, Feng Jianshan was so frightened that he retreated several steps. His face also became pale. Go! Li Zongjiu waved his hand again and cut off Bei Zizai's other hand, turning it into white bones. Ah! Bei Zizai's feet were covered with blood. He was a dignified 6th-grade origin emperor, but in front of Li Zongjiu, he did not have the slightest strength to resist. How is it? Didn't I say that trash is trash? Li Zongjiu waved his hand and said. I have given you enough time to consider. Are you going to kneel or not? Li Zongjiu looked at Feng Jianshan. If Feng Jianshan was unwilling, then he would just take care of Feng Jianshan. After taking care of Feng Jianshan, he still had to eat the fish. Just as Feng Jianshan did not know how to reply to Li Zongjiu, a group of murderous people immediately rushed in from outside the Desolation restaurant. These people were all wearing leather armor. Not only could the leather armor insulate the heat, it could also protect the body. Young master, are you all right? Feng Jianshan saw that the person who rushed in was the leader of the Feng family's guards. Coincidentally, these people were patrolling nearby today and happened to see Feng Jianshan's signal. Otherwise, it would take some time for them to come to the rescue. At least, it would not be as fast as it was now. Although the desert city was not big, it was not small either. Feng Tang, you came at the right time. Quickly take this person down. This person dares to slander the prestige of the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect. Also, quickly get the medical officer to treat Elder Bei's injuries. Feng Jianshan quickly ordered. At this moment, Feng Tang had brought with him close to 20 elite guards. These people were all Yuan King experts. Most importantly, these people had killed countless people and were extremely skilled in killing. Each of them was ruthless and merciless. Quickly stop Elder Bei's bleeding. Feng Tang quickly ordered when he saw the situation. One of them stepped forward and sprinkled a hemostatic powder on the 2 bloody white bones. Even though he had killed many people before, he could not help but feel terrified when he saw the 2 bones swaying in front of his eyes. Close the door. Feng Tang ordered. He took out his treasured saber. With a loud bang, the door of the wilderness restaurant was completely blocked. The people outside could not enter, and the people inside could not leave. In fact, it did not matter whether the door was closed or not. However, doing so would serve as a psychological deterrent. It would make one feel truly afraid and timid. It would take the initiative to break one's psychological defense and everything would be over. However, this kind of inferior trick was completely useless against Li Zongjiu. Brother, don't make things difficult for us. Come with us obediently and we won't make things difficult for you. Feng Tang pointed his saber at Li Zongjiu. From the scene in front of him, he naturally knew how difficult it was to deal with Li Zongjiu. Even Feng Jianshan's powerful personal guard, Yuan Ming, had disappeared. Could he have been scared away? Therefore, this matter was not simple. This made Feng Tang even more vigilant as he stared at Li Zongjiu in front of him. Finally, Feng Tang saw Li Zongjiu's finger move. Although there was not the slightest fluctuation of Yuan energy, Feng Tang subconsciously sensed that something was wrong. Not good, dodge. Unfortunately, these words were spoken a little too late. Almost at the same time as the other party spoke, the soul-slaying saber had already turned into a cold light with a swoosh. In an instant, it shuttled through the temples of the surrounding Feng family guards. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. As the flying saber swept through, the bodies of the guards who were about to kill Li Zongjiu fell one after another. Plop. Plop. One by one, they fell to the ground. The last one was Feng Tang. Immediately, Feng Tang's pupils shrank. He only had time to see a flying saber flying toward him. This was also the last thing he saw. Swoosh! The soul-slaying saber flew out with a splash of blood. Feng Tang's body also fell to the ground with a plop. Chapter 1226. The guards of the Feng family who finally arrived were all lying on the ground. They did not get up, nor did they have the chance to get up. Feng Jianshan thought that he could be saved, but looking at the scene in front of him, he felt as if he had fallen from the sky into a deep valley. You! What are you trying to do? Feng Jianshan stared at Li Zongjiu. At this moment, he was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. He did not even have the strength to stand and sat on the ground. Tell me, is the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect trash? Li Zongjiu asked. The soul cutter flew back into Li Zongjiu's hand. He casually played with the flying knife between his fingers. He did not even try to hide his threat. I'll talk. Don't kill me. Please kneel down and talk. Li Zongjiu said politely. Hearing Li Zongjiu's words and looking at the corpses on the ground, Feng Jianshan didn't even know what he had encountered to cause such a situation to occur. However, Li Zongjiu's strength was not something that Feng Jianshan could resist. At this moment, Feng Jianshan's identity as the young master of the Feng family did not bring him any benefits. Although his legs turned to jelly, Feng Jianshan still stubbornly straightened his body and knelt down in front of Li Zongjiu. Feng Jianshan, if you dare to insult the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect, the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect will definitely destroy your Feng family. You have to think carefully. Although Bei Zizai was in extreme pain at this moment, the power of the soul-severing flying dagger made it impossible for him to heal this injury. The remaining aura in the bones of his hand made him feel great pain at every moment. Finally, Bei Zizai could not bear the pain anymore. He stepped on the flying knife on the ground and cut off his arms directly. In this way, the wounds could be healed, but the hands that were cut off would never have the chance to recover. Although his hands were cut off, at least he did not have to endure the pain anymore. Bei Zizai's forehead was already covered in sweat. At this moment, he used his mind to take out a talisman from his storage bag. This talisman was ignited with the power of Yuan fire, and it immediately sent out a message. This was the special distress signal of the Xiayun Saint clan. As long as the signal talisman was sent out, someone would arrive within an hour. In fact, it wouldn't even take an hour. Brat of the Feng family, if you do anything to disgrace the name of our Compassionate Cloud sacred sect today, your whole family will be buried with you. Bei Zizai said coldly. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Today, Li Zongjiu had truly angered Bei Zizai, and he himself had suffered a great blow. Now, he was thinking of ways to find an opportunity to kill everyone who knew about this. Therefore, even the Feng family could not protect Feng Jianshan. Elder, Feng Jianshan's face was filled with grievances. How could he disgrace the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect? One should know that in order to join the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect, the Feng family had spent a lot of effort and resources to send him to the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect. In order to climb this line, they had spent a lot of resources. Now that they finally had the chance to join the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect, who knew that such a thing would appear? I'll give you 3 seconds to think about it. 3, 2, Li Zongjiu said indifferently. After his voice faded away. I'll say it, the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect is trash. After saying this, Li Yunhong said. What? Feng Jianshan felt that he was about to faint. He never thought that it would be so difficult to say a word. Good, very good. Your Feng family, wait to be annihilated. Of course, he believed that Li Zongjiu would not dare to kill him. If Li Zongjiu dared to kill him, Li Zongjiu would have done so long ago. If Li Zongjiu dared to kill him, he would have done so long ago. Even if you hid in any of the 3 dynasties, there would definitely be someone who would dig you out personally. You would have nowhere to hide. Bei Zizai was confident that Li Zongjiu would only dare to injure him and not kill him. Now that Feng Jianshan dared to say such words, the Feng family's fate was sealed. Swoosh! Li Zhongjiu's soul-slaying flying dagger suddenly fell in front of Feng Jianshan. Feng Jianshan was so scared that he quickly covered his head, fearing that his head would explode. However, the flying dagger only hovered in front of Feng Jianshan's eyes and did not continue to move forward. However, the sharp aura still made Feng Jianshan feel like his scalp was being cut open. You! What do you want? Feng Jianshan quickly said with a trembling voice. Could it be that Li Zhongjiu had some special fetish? He wanted to kill your family. I have no enmity with you, so I am your friend. Shouldn't you kill him? With my flying dagger in hand, he won't be able to escape. Li Zhongjiu said with a faint smile. No enmity. Looking at the corpses lying around, where did you think they came from? They were all killed by you, and they were all from the Feng family. How could this be called no enmity? However, Li Zhongjiu's intention was very obvious. He wanted Feng Jianshan to kill Bei Zizai. Feng Jianshan, how dare you? Bei Zizai took a step to the side, creating a certain distance between him and Feng Jianshan. Just now, he helped Feng Jianshan and saved his life. He did not expect that Feng Jianshan would use his enemy's weapon to take his life. Don't blame me for being ruthless. You are the one who wanted to kill my family, so I can only kill you. Feng Jianshan's eyes flashed with a fierce light. He immediately grabbed the soul cutter that Li Zhongjiu gave him and stabbed it towards Bei Zizai. With Bei Zizai's cultivation, even if his hands were broken, Feng Jianshan would not be able to stop him. However, just as Bei Zizai was about to use his Yuan Qi to blast Feng Jianshan into smithereens, he suddenly felt a strong binding force that was as strong as a mountain. It completely suppressed Bei Zizai's body. Not good. Bei Zizai wanted to take out some treasures from his storage ring, but his storage ring was directly sealed, as if it was cut off from his body. The only one who could do all this was Li Zhongjiu. Only Li Zhongjiu could do this, deliberately toying with their lives. Feng Jianshan stabbed Bei Zizai's chest, piercing a big hole in his heart. Then, he stabbed a few more times. Chi chi chi. Feng Jianshan unleashed all the fear in his heart on Bei Zizai's body, turning Bei Zizai's body into a beehive. Tsk tsk tsk, beautiful, beautiful. Li Zhongjiu could not help but clap his hands. However, Feng Jianshan, who was covered in blood, saw that in Li Zhongjiu's hand, there was a shining stone. Photographic stone. A stone that could record images. Moreover, it had clearly recorded the scene that had taken place just now. Ah! Feng Jianshan did not understand what Li Zhongjiu wanted to do, but he did not want to die. At this moment, when he saw Bei Zizai being stabbed into a hornet's nest, and then looked at the photographic stone in Li Zhongjiu's hand, he seemed to understand. Li Zhongjiu wanted to play him to death. With a swoosh, the flying knife in Feng Jianshan's hand returned to Li Zhongjiu's. Do you want to eat this braised shark's fin too? Li Zhongjiu held the soul-slaying flying knife in his hand and looked at the man in black, who was sitting in the corner, with a questioning gaze. Immediately, an awkward smile appeared on the black-clothed man's face. In the end, it was actually because of this plate of shark's fin. Li Zhongjiu had already killed so many people in order to eat this plate of shark's fin. If he was agitated, it would not be too much for him to kill another person. Therefore, he could only smile. You eat, take your time. I will come again next time. After saying that, the man in black opened the door of the restaurant and ran out quickly, disappearing without a trace. A monster that has just transformed dares to play tricks in front of me? Li Zhongjiu looked at the departing figure and said indifferently. The man in black who had just escaped and disappeared without a trace was a meta beast that had transformed into a meta beast. However, this meta beast had obviously not reached the sovereign realm. It was only because of its special strength that it had the opportunity to perform such a transformation technique. However, even if his strength had reached the peak of the Origin Emperor realm, he did not dare to act rashly in front of Li Zongjiu. Obviously, this was an extremely gluttonous meta-beast. He originally wanted to taste the legendary braised shark's fin in this desert city. It was said that if the braised shark's fin was cooked well, the aroma could spread dozens of miles away. Just as the man in black left, an extremely rich aroma floated from the direction of the kitchen. Li Zongjiu glanced at the dishes on the table that were already stained with blood. "Waiter, bring that shark's fin upstairs." "Yes, sir." The waiter immediately responded. Wasn't this matter obvious enough? The way to deal with it next was obviously much simpler. Li Zongjiu naturally swaggered up to the private room upstairs in an extremely carefree manner. However, the corpses on the ground, as well as the corpse that had tasted the pain of having its heart gouged out, were naturally handed over to Feng Jianshan. Li Zongjiu did not kill Feng Jianshan, but left him with his life. He wanted to see how long Feng Jianshan could struggle. For a game that controlled the life and death of others, no matter how long it took, it was still enjoyable to play it. Evil Lord, you should act like an evil lord. Chapter 12:27. Feng Jianshan forced himself to calm down. There's still a chance. There's still a chance. Although Feng Jianshan did not know what Li Zongjiu wanted to do, he only wanted to survive. The only trouble was to get rid of Bei Zizai's corpse. There was less than an hour left. The experts of Compassionate Cloud Saint sect would definitely arrive here. Before that, he had to get rid of everything. He had to get rid of everything. Feng Jianshan glanced at the shopkeeper at the counter. There was a hint of inquiry and threat in his eyes. "Humph, don't tell me you don't know the rules of Great Desolation Restaurant. Aside from cooking, we don't know anything else that happens in Great Desolation Restaurant. We don't know anything." The shopkeeper of the Great Desolate Restaurant was quite heroic and seemed to be extremely loyal. However, Feng Jianshan knew that such a person was the most likely to betray him in the face of battle. He might betray him at any time. Therefore, he had to think of a way to get rid of all these people. Feng Jianshan released a signal. Because of the previous signal for help, people from Feng family came quickly. Feng Jianshan saw hope in the people who came here. "Third uncle, something bad has happened." When Feng Jianshan saw his third uncle, who doted on him the most, appearing in front of him, he was naturally excited. After all, he had endured so much torture in the hands of Li Zongjiu. He was just a child. How could he endure such pain? What kind of torture did he suffer? What happened? Tell me slowly. Feng family's third brother patted Feng Jianshan's head as if he was comforting his own child. "Don't be afraid. Third uncle is here." Feng family's third brother said. "There's no time. We have to get rid of these corpses first." When Feng family's third brother saw that the Great Desolation Restaurant was full of corpses, he knew that they were all experts of Feng family. They were all hired at a high price. What happened in the restaurant? Isn't this? Feng family's third brother's face changed when he saw Zizai being stabbed into a pulp. He was sent out by Xiayun Saint clan to take care of everything for Xiayun Saint clan. He was an outer sect chief elder. To put it nicely, he was an elder, but in the Compassionate Cloud Sacred sect, he was just an errand boy. But even if he was just an errand boy of the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect, he couldn't just die here casually. And by the looks of it, it seemed like this had something to do with Feng Jianshan. That was all the more reason to stop this. After pondering for a moment, the Feng family's third brother ordered the others to stand guard outside the door. He only called 2 of his trusted aides in and took away all the corpses. He also gave the Great Desolation Restaurant a large sum of money. What happened today has never happened in the Great Desolate Restaurant. No one from the Feng family has ever been here. The third son of the Feng clan walked to the front of the shopkeeper and said. The shopkeeper also smiled slightly. Don't worry, I know the rules. The third brother of the Feng clan nodded, then took out a 1 million purple yuan banknote and slapped it on the counter. Then, he turned around and left with everyone. This matter needed to be discussed properly in order to overcome the crisis of the Feng family. Unexpectedly, such a thing happened. The people of the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect were killed by Feng Jianshan. The shopkeeper of the Great Desolation restaurant was naturally happy after receiving the 1 million purple yuan banknotes. However, it was not easy to earn 1 million purple yuan banknotes. The strength of the person who is dining upstairs is unfathomable. His character is eccentric and terrifying. The shopkeeper of the Great Desolate restaurant had seen a lot of people. However, he had never seen someone like Li Zongjiu. However, Li Zongjiu was powerful after all. It was normal for him to have some eccentricities. If he was in Li Zongjiu's shoes, his temper would be even more eccentric. Waiter, you better serve this master well. Don't worry, shopkeeper. Li Zongjiu naturally ate all the delicacies on the table in the private room. However, half an hour passed in the blink of an eye. The three of them were dressed in dark red robes that were embroidered with a few flowing cloud patterns. When this group of people landed in the desert city, they immediately shocked the few people beside them. Are they crazy? Jumping around in broad daylight? Why don't they perform acrobatics? A burly man with a saber was startled. These people seemed to have appeared out of nowhere without any sound. However, after landing, the movement itself was not small. He almost had a heart attack from the shock. Therefore, the burly man with a saber could not help but curse. Although there were 3 people on the other side, how could they cower when they were roaming the Jianghu? Ha! One of the 3 turned around and looked at the burly man in front of him, his eyes emitting a cold light. What are you looking at? Do you want to chop me? In the next second, the burly man's throat was grabbed by the young man's hand and lifted up. His feet left the ground and kept kicking. Crack! A crisp sound came from the burly man's neck. Then, his whole body fell to the ground with a thud and lost his vitality. A person was killed on the street. Moreover, this burly man with a saber seemed to have made a name for himself before. Usually, he was a ruthless person. However, a ruthless person's fate was so direct. In an instant, he became a dead dog lying on the ground. The difference between before and after was so fast that it made people dumbfounded. Prehistoric restaurant. One of them opened his mouth and said. Then, the 3 of them quickly rushed toward the prehistoric restaurant. Among the 3 of them, only one was slightly older. The other 2, a man and a woman, looked around 25 or 26 years old. They were about the same age as Feng Jianshan. However, their decisiveness and ruthlessness were not something that Feng Jianshan could compare with. In the distance, Gu Wei, who was looking for clues on the street, happened to see the scene in front of her. From the clothes of the 3 of them, she knew the origin of these 3 people. However, there were not many people who knew about them. After all, the news of the prehistoric sect was not something that ordinary people could understand. Compassionate Cloud Saint sect. They seem to be from the inner sect. What are these people from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect doing in this city? When Gu Wei saw the identity of these 3 people, she was surprised. This was because these people from the prehistoric sect basically did not show up easily. Usually, they were out of the world. Even if they had some interactions, they would only walk a little between each other's sections. They rarely came to the so-called mortal world in person. Therefore, Gu Wei was very curious. However, Gu Wei did not dare to investigate alone. If there were any accidents, or if she accidentally angered these people from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect, the consequences would be unimaginable. These people were very powerful. They were not people that the 4 great families in the desert city could deal with. I heard that the Feng family and the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect have a very close relationship. Could it be that they are here for the people of the Feng family? Gu Wei immediately turned back and immediately sent people to investigate this matter. This was not a small matter. If the Feng family did anything, the other families would be in danger. Even with the status of the four major families, in this desert city, it was as if they were treading on thin ice. They could not sleep soundly every day. Every day, the open and secret struggles were much more severe and intense than they had imagined. Chapter 12:28. The three people from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect arrived at the Eldritch restaurant. At this moment, the Eldritch restaurant had been cleaned up by the Feng family. Everything looked normal. After the Eldritch restaurant was vacated, many guests came to dine. For a moment it was so lively that no one could tell that there had been a murder case here. Of course, such a scene was also a feature. Even if it was on the street, the scene could be cleaned up quickly. "3 guests, please come in." The waiter came up with a warm smile and asked. The young man pushed the waiter away and looked around the Eldritch restaurant. Suddenly, he reached out and grabbed the person who was eating beside him. "Hey, what are you doing?" That person was quite unhappy that he was caught. His companions who were eating with him also glared at him. "Put him down, or you will regret it." When he spoke, he looked very cool. "Trash." The young man from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect threw him out. Bang! The man smashed the table and flipped it over. He directly destroyed the good dishes on the table. "Fuck. You're courting death." Several people at the same table took out their weapons. They were a group of people who licked blood on the blade. Therefore, when they met these fierce people, they often had to be fiercer than them. Only in this way could they beat others and not be killed while walking on the street. However, no matter how fierce these people were, it was useless. He had merely drawn out his weapon, but before he could even make a move, he had already been obliterated by someone else. With a sweep of his sword, he killed all of them. His body stayed in the same place, but his head fell to the ground with a thud. "Irrelevant people, get lost," the young man said coldly. The surrounding diners were also shocked, but no one ran away. They really couldn't believe that there were so many people in the Eldritch restaurant. Could it be that he could kill all of them one by one? Furthermore, the 3 of you dared to behave atrociously in the great desolate restaurant. Those who could come here to eat were all people with some standards. If such a situation occurred in an ordinary city, the diners in the restaurant would probably admit defeat. However, in this desert city, in the wilderness restaurant, it was useless. When the young man saw that the people in front of him did not seem to have any intention of moving, the sword in his hand immediately released a faint murderous aura. He was ready to kill everyone in the wilderness restaurant. However, just as he was about to attack, he was stopped by the old man among the 3. The old man stretched out his hand and pressed on the young man's shoulder. "Everybody, we're from the Xiaoyun Holy Sect. Less than an hour ago, someone from the Xiaoyun Holy Sect was killed and sent a distress signal. Some of you must know. Tell me and I won't kill him." Compassionate Cloud Saint Clan. Some of them were unfamiliar with the name. They guessed that it was a despicable sect. However, some of them felt their hearts skip a beat when they heard the name Xiaoyun Saint Sect. The name Xiaoyun Saint sounded extremely familiar. A sect from the untainted land. Someone exclaimed. Suddenly, the people present began to talk about it. Even the 3-year-old children in the desert city knew that as long as they came from the untainted land, they could not be underestimated. They had to be on tenterhooks all the time. They had to be careful all the time. The reason why the people in the desert city stayed in such a hot place, even a place where birds didn't even shit, was to enter the untainted land to search for treasures. However, the untainted land was extremely dangerous. Few people could survive for more than 3 days in the untainted land. No matter where you hid in the untainted land, as long as you could stay for 3 days, you would be respected by others when you returned. At least, this was a kind of recognition of the strong. However, these people had been here for a long time and realized that there were still sects in the untainted land. In such a cruel environment, they could establish a sect and develop it safely. Such strength was enough to show the strength of the people in the untainted land. Even if their individual strength was not strong, there would definitely be experts in the sects behind them. Experts of this level were not something you could imagine. According to what they knew, the Compassionate Cloud Saints sect was one of the sects in the untainted land. No wonder they dared to be so arrogant and kill people on sight. In the blink of an eye, they killed 4 people. After all, their strength was strong and they had the capital to be arrogant. What could they do? We just arrived not long ago. We really don't know what happened here. Experts, you can ask them. They came a little earlier. Immediately, a table of people stood up. Their table was empty except for a pot of tea. Obviously, they had just walked in. This matter had nothing to do with them. After all, they had just arrived. However, just as the 3 of them were about to sneak away, they saw the young woman raise her hand and close the door of the Untainted Land restaurant. At the same time, 3 flying needles were thrown out. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The flying needles carried an extremely weak sound and easily pierced the back of the 3 people's necks. The 3 of them fell to the ground. The 3 people who were originally running wildly suddenly stopped. It was obvious that their bodies were paralyzed in an instant. The poison on the flying needles had directly ended their lives. Since you can't help me, it's naturally useless to live. Don't you think so? The old man from the Compassionate Cloud Saints sect said slowly. They were all high and mighty experts. How could they talk about the rules and keep their promises with ants like you? If they wanted to kill you, they would just kill you directly. What could they do? Obviously, they had no intention of letting these people leave from the beginning. Although the one who died was just an outer sect disciple, he was still a disciple of their Compassionate Cloud Saints sect. They had to find him and give an explanation to the sect. They also had to teach the culprits a lesson. They had to let them know how terrifying the ancient sects were. Only by killing some people, the rest would learn to be smart. Now, we'll take turns to go to each table. Whoever knows something must say it. As long as the clues are useful, I promise I won't make things difficult for you. The young man brought a chair for the old man. He wanted everyone to go up and tell. Who would dare to go up first? These people were decisive and unpredictable. Who knew what would happen? Chapter 12:29. At this moment, who would dare to step out and be the first one to stand out? You don't dare to come up. Then, you come up. The old man pointed at a table that was closer to them. The people at the table seemed to be a family. At this moment, they were also having a meal here. A man and a woman were a couple. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl. The boy was already 6 or 7 years old, while the girl was only about 2 years old. The 2-year-old girl did not know what fear was. She kept clapping her hands and kicking her legs in her father's arms. She seemed to want to go down and play. Seniors, my wife and I were just passing by this place and came in to have a simple meal. We don't know anything about what you said before. Please, seniors, let us live. The husband handed his daughter to his wife and took a step forward. If you want to kill us, please kill me and let my family go. These otherworldly experts all had eccentric tempers. It was really unexpected that they would encounter such a situation. It was more like an unexpected disaster. Today, it would be difficult to be kind. Every disciple of Xiaoyun Saint sect is my family. My family members. Tell me, when my family members have an accident outside, as a family member, shouldn't we do our best? If everyone is like you, when will I know the ins and outs of the matter? Since you don't know, don't blame me. The old man sighed slightly. At the same time, he took a sip of the tea in his hand. Immediately, the woman beside him raised her hand and shot out 4 silver needles. The silver needles were so fast that people could not see them clearly. However, no one expected that these people from Xiaoyan Saint sect would be so ruthless. They did not even let go of such a small child. Ding 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 ding. 4 crisp sounds of collisions rang out, and the 4 flying needles were broken. The husband also retreated continuously, shielding his wife and child behind him. He did not even sense that the other party had attacked. Obviously, the strength of these people was far above him. However, who was it that broke the 4 flying needles? Did they dare to make an enemy out of the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Clan? Clearly, they wanted to make an enemy out of them. Who is it? The young woman's flying needles were interrupted. Naturally, she was very unhappy. Who was so bold? However, after looking around, they still couldn't find out who was the culprit. Instead, the old man took a sip of tea and looked at the figure sitting in the corner. Since you dare to take action, you must think that the strength of our Compassionate Cloud Sacred Clan is not enough to catch your eye, right? Therefore, everyone looked in the direction of the old man. They couldn't help but open up a path. This location could be considered the most obscure corner. The man was wearing a straw raincoat, a straw hat, and a hoe were placed beside the table. Who knows that every grain of food on the plate is hard work? You can kill people, but don't waste food. You can kill people, but you can't even kill innocent children. This so-called Compassionate Cloud Saint sect sounds like a graveyard. The short-haired middle-aged man said. He drank a mouthful of wine and ate a mouthful of food. The young man from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect saw this and sneered. He raised the sword in his hand and slowly walked over. The middle-aged man directly picked up the peanuts on the table and instantly shot them out. These peanuts were like stones that carried 1,000 caddies of force. They were instantly thrown out. Shio! Boom! The sword in the young man's hand slashed down. The overbearing sword chi directly slashed towards the short-haired middle-aged man's table. Since you said that every grain of food is hard work, then I'll let you have nothing to eat. The middle-aged man also raised the hoe. A terrifying yuan li instantly burst out from his body. Boom! The hoe spun and collided with the opponent's sword chi, causing a terrifying wave to erupt. It spread to the surroundings. Obviously, the middle-aged man with the hoe was also an Origin Emperor expert. However, after this move, the middle-aged man's aura seemed to be unable to keep up with the person in front of him. He realized that there was a sword mark on his chest. Obviously, he was injured by the sword chi just now. A mere 3rd-grade Origin Emperor dares to come out and be chivalrous. Take care of your own life first. A 3rd-grade Origin Emperor was already considered a strong expert. At least, an expert of this level could survive for more than 7 days in the wilderness. However, it was obvious that a 3rd-grade Origin Emperor's cultivation was not worth mentioning in front of this young man from the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. The middle-aged man with the hoe also felt that the opponent's strength was troublesome and difficult to deal with. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fallen into a disadvantageous position in this instant of confrontation. However, if the opponent wanted to kill him, it wouldn't be an easy task. At least, it wouldn't be a problem for him to kill him within 300 moves. Just as the two sides were confronting each other, and the young man from the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect was about to make his move, he heard the sound of footsteps coming from the stairs. Burp. Li Zhongjiu especially missed the taste of the wilderness restaurant. Therefore, when he ate, he ordered a little too much. At least the portion for 5 people was all eaten by Li Zhongjiu. After eating, Li Zhongjiu stuck out his big belly. The abdominal muscles that he had painstakingly trained were flattened a lot. Li Zhongjiu obviously had no intention of paying the bill. The owner of the wilderness restaurant had no intention of collecting money from Li Zhongjiu. He just hoped that Li Zongjiu would leave as soon as possible. Oh, it's so lively. Li Zongjiu didn't expect that he would encounter such a situation. Killing people behind closed doors, but he was in a good mood today, so he didn't intend to disturb these people. He tried his best to bypass these people and then walked towards the door. During this process, the eyes of the people in the inn fell on Li Zongjiu. They stared at Li Zongjiu closely. They were surprised that Li Zongjiu didn't feel that the situation here was wrong. Hey, this group of indifferent killers is killing people. Don't you have any intention of seeing it? Stop. Just when Li Zongjiu walked to the door as if nothing had happened. The young woman from the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect opened her mouth and scolded Li Zongjiu. This guy dared to directly ignore the people of the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. He was simply courting death. Well? What's the matter? Li Zongjiu turned around. As soon as his voice fell, he heard two tinkling sounds. He couldn't help but touch his belly. It seemed that he had been pricked by two needles. However, these two needles obviously didn't break Li Zongjiu's defense and were easily blocked. Little girl, why did you stab me with needles? Chapter 12:30. Stab you? A cold light flashed in the young woman's eyes. At the same time, her eyes were full of disbelief. I'm not just going to stab you. I'm going to kill you. She assumed that Li Zongjiu must have some top-notch defensive equipment on him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to block her flying needles so easily. There were so many people here. If she was looked down upon, how could she continue to stay in the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect? Today, Li Zongjiu must die. Moreover, he must die under her flying needles. Only in this way could Ao Macho regain her dignity. You're courting death. Ao Macho shouted in a low voice. A bracelet appeared on both of her wrists, spinning. While it was spinning, there was also a cold light that was constantly flowing. With the appearance of this cold light, Ao Macho's aura became extremely fierce. Not far away, the young man from Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect saw this scene and couldn't help but burst out a bright light from his eyes. Facing such a brat, Ao Macho was actually forced to use her flying needle bracelet. This meant that Li Zongjiu had completely angered Ao Macho. That's interesting. When the other guests in the restaurant saw that Li Zongjiu and Ao Macho were looking at each other, ready to fight, their hearts trembled with fear. However, at the same time, they also felt great sympathy for Li Zongjiu. Offending these people in front of him would definitely not end well. From the looks of these people, it was clear that these people were some absolutely ruthless characters. Therefore, at this moment, they all felt a moment of silence for Li Zongjiu. Rainstorm killing array. Ao Macho suddenly pushed her hands forward. In an instant, the people in the restaurant could clearly feel that the wind and clouds outside were changing because of the magic weapon in Ao Macho's hands. It was as if there were thousands of tiny silver needles flying towards Li Zongjiu at high speed. You still want to stab me? Li Zongjiu casually grabbed and a terrifying force gathered all the flying needles in front of him. Then, he clenched his fist and gathered all the flying needles into a ball. It was enough to form a fist-sized metal ball. This iron ball was also formed by these thin silver needles. Clang! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground was heard. The iron ball fell to the ground with a loud clang. It was like a crisp slap to Ao Macho's face. Ao Macho didn't even dare to imagine that such a thing would happen. Therefore, Ao Macho was quite surprised. What kind of sorcery did you use? Ao Macho suddenly roared and pointed his finger at Li Zongjiu. At the same time, he furiously attacked Li Zongjiu. He was determined to take Li Zongjiu's head. Otherwise, how could he face himself? Sky-splitting slash. The young man standing not far away could not stand it anymore. Anyhow, she was his junior sister. How could she be bullied by someone like Li Zhongjiu? Today, he had to show his power as a senior brother and take Li Zhongjiu's head. That was the most important thing. Immediately, the young man leaped up with all his strength and slashed his sword towards Li Zhongjiu with an earth-shattering momentum. The faces of the many people present changed drastically. The power of this sword was naturally quite tyrannical. If it were any one of them, they would only end up with their bodies and bones crushed under this sword. The young man in front of them would not be able to dodge this sword. Clang! The young man, Wang Su, was ready to split Li Zhongjiu in half with his sword. His sword momentum had been condensed to the peak, but just as he was about to kill Li Zhongjiu, he discovered that Li Zhongjiu had only used 2 fingers to casually clamp his sword. How is this possible? Wang Su's face was filled with shock. He was about to withdraw his sword and stab Li Zhongjiu again. He was determined to cut open Li Zhongjiu's stomach. However, Li Zhongjiu exerted some force with his 2 fingers and a crisp sound was heard. The sword in Wang Su's hand was broken. "My Green Gang devil-slaying sword!" Wang Su exclaimed. "I'll give it back to you." Li Zhongjiu threw back the broken sword that he was holding between his fingers. With a whoosh, the broken sword easily penetrated Wang Su's body. Wang Su's cultivation, which he had painstakingly cultivated for decades, did not have the slightest strength to resist Li Zhongjiu's move. Wang Su's body was easily pierced through. Wang Su stood in place, holding the broken sword with both hands. He lowered his head and looked at his chest in disbelief. Red blood was constantly seeping out. So this was what it felt like to be pierced through by one's own sword. "Do you want me to return these needles to you?" Li Zhongjiu snapped his fingers. The ball of silver needles, which had been curled up on the ground, directly rose into the air. Then, it turned into a torrential rain and directly penetrated Wang Su's body. Tut 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 tut. Puff. Wang Su's body was directly pierced into a sieve by these thousands of silver needles. Even the flesh on his body was directly reduced to shreds. "Senior brother!" Ao Macho exclaimed when he saw this. He immediately rushed forward to catch Wang Su's falling body, but he was directly reduced to a pile of rotten flesh. Only a small part of his body was caught by Ao Macho. Wang Su, who was lying on the ground, was already rotten to the core. Only his head was still conscious. He couldn't even look down at his body to see what it had become. All he could feel was a heart-wrenching pain. Such an excruciating pain made Wang Su wish he could die quickly. "Kill! Kill me!" Wang Su said to Ao Macho in an extremely weak voice. Ao Macho had never thought that such a thing would happen. However, at this moment, his senior brother seemed to be immersed in endless pain. Although he could not bear it, Ao Macho still raised his hand. Just as Ao Macho was about to end Wang Su's life with his palm, there was a loud bang. Ao Macho's head was directly broken from the neck and rolled to the ground. He was kicked away by Li Zhongjiu. This scene was so fresh and tragic that no one could believe what they were seeing. She was a young lady who was as beautiful as a flower, but cruel and merciless. His neck was broken and his head was kicked away. Wang Su was not completely dead yet. After all, Li Zhongjiu did not directly cripple Wang Su's vital parts. He just pierced most of his body into hedgehog holes. Even Wang Su's eyes were dripping with Ao Macho's blood. No. Chapter 1231. Li Zhongjiu's attack could be said to be really ruthless. Everyone at the scene was stunned. What kind of operation was this? It was simply unbelievable. Obviously, they couldn't believe what they saw. Just like that, this fine young lady had turned into a bloody head. Although this girl was also a ruthless person before, she met someone who was more ruthless. However, he actually encountered an even more ruthless person. This was quite unexpected. He really couldn't believe his eyes. Could it be that this Li Zhongjiu didn't have the slightest hesitation before making a move? What a nice girl she is. Finally, Wang Su, who fell to the ground, couldn't hold on for long. She couldn't catch her last breath and died just like that. From the beginning to the end, the two disciples of the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect died. The old man sat in the same place and didn't move at all. Everyone had their own fate. If they couldn't escape from their own fate, they could only accept it. Since he couldn't change the fate of these disciples, he couldn't interfere too much. However, the person in front of him who killed the disciples of the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect had to pay a painful price. It's a pity that two good seedlings were destroyed in your hands. In return, I will let you be completely destroyed in my hands. Immediately, the old man stood up and looked at Li Zhongjiu in front of him. You killed the people of my Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect, right? Under the old man's hat, there seemed to be a bright golden light that suddenly bloomed. Like two cold lights, it directly shot in front of Li Zhongjiu. The bright and dazzling light almost blinded Li Zhongjiu to the point that he couldn't open his eyes. In the next second, the old man's figure had already whistled and arrived. He lifted his hand and threw a palm. It seemed as though he had the power to move a mountain. Soon after, a wave of energy suddenly fell from his palm. Bang! Li Zhongjiu's hand also directly hit the old man's palm. When the two palms collided, the old man's face immediately changed. His face had already turned purple. In panic, it was too late for him to withdraw his strength. In the next second, he saw that his arm was directly blown off. Your strength is not as good as these two little ones. Li Zhongjiu's words came into the old man's ears. Immediately, the old man's body suddenly felt as if he was struck by lightning. The strength of Li Zhongjiu in front of him had obviously reached the acme of perfection. Such a terrifying power was not something he could resist. Li Zhongjiu in front of him was not an ordinary person. How could he meet such a person with such terrifying strength? Moreover, this person in front of him seemed to be targeting of the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. Li Zhongjiu's palm had broken. The old man's arm was Li Zhongjiu's palm of. Is Zhongjiu. Is I. Of Li of. Wind Fire Divine Thunder Incantation. The old man took out a talisman from his arms and directly tore it and threw it at Li Zhongjiu. Immediately, a terrifying power was brewing above the talisman. However, when the power of the talisman was completely released, a hand had already reached out, grabbed the talisman in the hand, and easily shattered it. Boom! It seemed that all the power had been released in Li Zhongjiu's palm. However, in fact, Li Zhongjiu had condensed all the power in his palm. How is this possible? The old man absolutely could not believe that someone could completely control and suppress the power of the Wind Fire Divine Thunder Incantation with the power of one hand. This talisman was refined by Venerable Feng Huo of the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. Venerable Feng Huo was a famous expert in the Untainted Land. At the same time, he was also one of the three supreme experts in the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. Even the talisman refined by a supreme expert was taken down by the boy in front of him with one hand. Was there anything that the boy in front of him could not do? In the next second, Li Zhongjiu directly sent all the power of the Wind Fire Divine Thunder Incantation back into the old man's body. Bang! Blazing energy instantly exploded. The old man's protective yuan power also surged out at this moment and collided with the power. The only thing that suffered the most was the old man's own strength. First of all, the origin pearl was completely shattered. After all, Li Zhongjiu's move was aimed at the origin pearl in the old man's body. He easily shattered the origin pearl. After holding on for less than half a minute, the old man spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, his body suddenly flew out and fell to the ground. The lightning and golden light in front of him also disappeared in an instant. Li Zhongjiu also disappeared. After destroying the cultivation of the old man from the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect, Li Zongjiu did not intend to stay here any longer. After all, there was no point in doing so. However, the old man from the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect, who had his cultivation destroyed, was half lying on the ground and spitting out blood continuously. Obviously, his injuries were extremely serious, but no one sympathized with him. Instead, they sharpened the sabers in their hands to the extreme. This was because the storage ring of the old man in front of them was still in his hand. This old man came from the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect. The amount of treasures in his storage ring was simply unimaginable. This old man's yuan power is destroyed. Let's kill him together. Weren't you so arrogant just now? How did you become a dead dog in the blink of an eye? Everyone ridiculed the old man from the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect. Obviously, the old man's strength was quite high in the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect. However, at this moment, his cultivation was completely destroyed and he had become a weak old man who could not even truss a chicken. In the face of these ferocious maniacs around him, he had no strength to resist at all. If you dare to touch me, the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect will definitely not let you off. My Compassionate Cloud sacred sect's sovereign experts will take action. None of you will be able to escape. The old man used his last breath to roar, trying to reprimand the people in front of him with this imposing manner. However, these people in front of him had long been blinded by the storage ring in the old man's hand. Finally, someone could not bear it anymore and took the lead to roar in a low voice. He directly flew out and slashed the old man's body more than a dozen times, taking off the ring on his left hand. After that, there were also other people who could not bear it and directly rushed up to fight, wanting to take the ring away. A bloody battle broke out in the Wilderness Restaurant. The boss of the Wilderness Restaurant was completely convinced. These people were fighting in his place for no reason. Today, he did not know how many tables and chairs had been replaced. Therefore, the boss of the Wilderness Restaurant was quite distressed. However, these people were killing with bloodshot eyes, not differentiating between friend and foe. It seemed that whoever got close to him would snatch the things in his hand, and then a great battle would break out. The scene was extremely chaotic. However, what made the boss of the restaurant even more curious was who this mysterious young man was. Previously, he had not heard of such a person in Desert City. Apparently, he had just arrived. Chapter 1232. Li Zongjiu didn't have any motive for killing these people. There was no great hatred between them. However, once he had the strength, he could do whatever he wanted. He didn't have any scruples at all. However, Li Zongjiu's casual actions could easily change the fate of others. Since that was the case, he might as well satisfy his hobbies and make the world more colorful. He wanted to let these people know that it was not an easy thing to live. Previously, when Gu Wei returned to the Desert Eagle, she had already sent someone to follow these people from the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect. She wanted to know why these people came to the desert city. However, after the spy saw the 3 people from the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect walk in, he never came out again. Instead, a young man took the lead and walked out. After a while, a big fight seemed to have broken out in the Wilderness Restaurant. There were countless deaths and injuries, causing more than half of the signboard of the Great Desolate Restaurant to be torn down. However, it was also because of this signboard that such wonderful things would happen so often in the Great Desolate Restaurant. Naturally, it would become a movable signboard. In the desert city, the most terrible thing was to be unknown. If it was a place where the wind and clouds gathered, it would naturally attract more experts. It was really quite puzzling. This was obviously a very dangerous place, but why did people like to go there? After that, the spy from the Desert Eagle quickly reported what he saw to Gu Wei. You mean a young man? What does he look like? When Gu Wei heard the report from her subordinate, she frowned. She felt that there must be something wrong with this, so she needed to think about it carefully. I recorded it with a shadow stone. Immediately, the subordinate opened the shadow stone. A light screen appeared directly, clearly showing the appearance of Li Zongjiu. This was also the purpose of these intelligence personnel to accurately record the scene. At least, they wouldn't suddenly forget the situation. After all, some details still needed to be observed repeatedly. However, the shadow stone itself was relatively expensive and would only be used in some extremely important situations. It's him. When Gu Wei saw the gaze of the person on the image recording stone, she was shocked. Her beautiful big eyes also flashed with surprise. It was this young man again. Therefore, this young man in front of him must have some sort of secret. What about the three from the Compassionate Cloud Saint clan? They are all dead. What? Gu Wei couldn't sit still anymore and suddenly stood up. All dead. There was no doubt that the deaths of these people from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect were definitely related to this young man in front of him. Motherfucker, something big is going to happen. It was no wonder that his eyelids had been twitching recently. It turned out that such a thing had happened. He couldn't tell if it was a good thing or a bad thing. It seemed that the medicinal pill in his hand was really a hot potato. Where is this guy living now? Gu Wei calmed herself down. She hadn't received any news about the Sparrow God Palace that she had previously investigated. It seemed like it wouldn't be easy to complete this mission. At the same time, Gu Wei also sent people to investigate Li Zongjiu's identity. He had a feeling that this kid had come to Desert City to cause trouble. He is living in the Soaring Dragon Pavilion. The Soaring Dragon Pavilion was the property of the Yu family, one of the four major families in Desert City. Furthermore, the Soaring Dragon Pavilion was also known as the safest place in the entire Desert City. As long as one stayed in the Soaring Dragon Pavilion, they would no longer be chased or threatened by anyone. Within the Soaring Dragon Pavilion, no one was allowed to fight. Otherwise, they would be making an enemy out of the Yu family. The Yu family would also spare no effort to hunt down the person, or even the person's entire family. When the Soaring Dragon Pavilion was first established, many people didn't believe in heresy and insisted on fighting in the Soaring Dragon Pavilion. As a result, more than 10 primitive emperors from the Yu family killed their way through the night. They killed all the people who fought, including their family's ancestral hall. Not a single person was left alive. Because of this arrogance and overbearingness, after 3 massacres, no one dared to challenge the authority of the Yu family. Even the other 3 major families in the city had to abide by the rules of the Soaring Dragon Pavilion. Li Zongjiu didn't choose to stay here because the Soaring Dragon Pavilion was very safe. In Li Zongjiu's opinion, the conditions of the Soaring Dragon Pavilion were very good. Furthermore, there was a specialized training room. Although the price was very expensive, Li Zongjiu didn't need to care about these things. No matter how much it cost, he could afford it. At most, he wouldn't have to pay. There was nothing wrong with doing such things once in a while. After becoming stronger, one could indeed do whatever one wanted. Li Zongjiu was training in the training room. At the same time, he was trying to use his mental strength to integrate into the wilderness to search for the aura of the desolate heaven essence. It was rather difficult to directly find Qi Yanran's aura. However, if he used the power of the desolate heaven essence to search, he might be able to find some clues. However, it was clear that Li Zongjiu's efforts were in vain that night. He didn't find any information. In Desert City, the Feng family seemed to be rather nervous today. Even the number of people walking on the streets had decreased significantly. This was because what Feng Jianshan had done was too shocking. Now, they could only look for Li Zongjiu. They had to get Li Zongjiu to retrieve the evidence of Feng Jianshan's murder. Only then would they have room to maneuver. Feng Liansheng, the third brother of the Feng family, also understood after carefully studying the situation. Obviously, Li Zongjiu was just a frivolous expert. Such a person did not lack anything at all. The only thing he lacked was a sense of satisfaction. He had to lower his head. Not only did he have to lower his head, he had to lower his head very, very low. Immediately, Feng Liancheng ordered his men to prepare an extremely rich gift. They were sent to Li Zongjiu's room in the Soaring Dragon Pavilion that very night. However, it was clear that Li Zongjiu was in a state of cultivation and didn't sense anyone knocking on the door to call him. The desert city was still bustling. Even at night, it was still rather lively. After all, the temperature would drop slightly after dark. Although there were experts coming and going, who would want to stay in a more comfortable environment. He would collect some of the things he had obtained during the day and place them in a certain market square. Then, he would bid for them. It was very lively. If he encountered someone who didn't know the trade, he could easily deceive hundreds of thousands, or even millions. Who wouldn't want to come to such a place with such a good income? Chapter 1233. Deep in the Wilderness. In the surroundings of a pool, there were the colors of the 4 seasons, spring, summer, autumn, and winter. This scene was incomparably mysterious. Looking at the numerous stars in the sky, they all had their own rules and did not share the same sky as this world. At the bottom of the pool, there was a palace. The bottom of the palace seemed to be stuck to the surface of the water, while the top of the palace was directly at the bottom of the water. It was as if the surface of the lake was the real flat ground, and the palace was built on the surface of the lake. As the world submerged in the water, one could see that the palace was golden and dazzling. Hundreds of birds flew, and their cries shook the sky. From time to time, flocks of birds would descend from the sky and rush into the palace in the middle of the lake before flying out again. It was as if they were freely shuttling between 2 worlds. Yen ran, as a disciple of Sparrow Divine Palace, you should cut off all contact with the outside world. From the moment you stepped into Sparrow Divine Palace, you are no longer a mortal. In 1,000 years, you will definitely be able to ascend to the position of a god. An ethereal voice stirred up huge waves on the surface of the water. However, there was no other voice outside the water. You have no right to restrict me. Under the voice, a white-clothed woman was sitting on a flying bird dhow platform. On her wrist was a white bracelet that emitted a white light. From the aura it emitted, it was the desolate heaven essence. And this white-clothed figure was Qi Yanran. I don't want to be your successor. I don't want to ascend to the position of a god. Let me leave on my own. I won't make things difficult for you. Qi Yanran's eyes were filled with coldness. However, the flying bird dhow platform was an extremely powerful artifact that had trapped Qi Yanran here. There was a small world inside the flying bird dhow platform. If Qi Yanran wanted to, she could cultivate in this small world. However, it was impossible for her to leave the flying bird dhow platform. This was because the palace guardian of Sparrow Divine Palace did not plan on letting her leave. You are still young. Once you understand, you will naturally be willing to stay. When the voice disappeared, the surroundings fell into silence once again. Qi Yanran had been trapped here for a long time. As for how long it had been, Qi Yanran herself wasn't sure. In this small world of the flying bird dhow platform, the flow of time was different from the outside world. Although Qi Yanran wasn't sure, she could at least sense the changes. Therefore, Qi Yanran didn't know how much time had passed outside. At this moment, Qi Yanran really wanted to leave this place and find Li Zongjiu. However, these people trapped her here and forced her to cut off her mortal thoughts. Qi Yanran didn't know what these people were doing, which made her quite helpless. This flying bird dhow platform requires one to be at least a supreme being to break through. Fine, I'll break through to the supreme being realm first. Let's see how long you can trap me here. Qi Yanran was not a person who would accept her fate and compromise. When she missed Li Zongjiu, she would touch the bracelet formed from the desolate heaven essence in her hand. At this moment, Li Zongjiu was definitely searching everywhere for her. She could not let Li Zongjiu wait for too long. Fool, you have to wait for me. Qi Yanran's eyes were filled with determination. Then, she entered the pocket world of the flying bird Dao platform. In this small world, Qi Yanran completely released her longevity tree king's original spirit. It was like a world tree, diffusing and spreading out. It encompassed the world and breathed in its aura. At this moment, in the palace that was flipping in the water, 3 figures were standing guard in front of a statue. The World Dao Tree. Such a divine tree must not be allowed to fall. Even if she hates us in the future, she must nurture the World Dao Tree. The 3 figures were all dressed in sparrow robes. There was a rune between their eyebrows. The rune looked like a pair of wings. Although the 3 women were old, the endless power they exuded was terrifying. The person sitting in the middle who had spoken just now, an old woman sitting to his left, opened her eyes. This girl's concern in the secular world is a man called Li Zongjiu. It seems that we need to help her get rid of this concern. After the woman spoke, the hall fell into a deep silence once again. Not a single sound could be heard. But soon, outside the pool, there seemed to be an aura descending from the sky. Boom! A giant black eagle landed beside the pool. The moment it landed, it transformed into a middle-aged man in black tights. What orders do the 3 venerables have for me? The middle-aged man knelt down in front of the pool. Dark Black Eagle, find a man called Li Zongjiu in the secular world. Bring me his head. He Xian understands. The middle-aged man immediately responded. He did not expect that he would have the opportunity to do something for the 3 venerables. If this matter was done well, wouldn't there be countless benefits? Even if the 3 venerables casually enlightened him, there was a possibility that he would have a breakthrough and step into a higher and more mysterious level. Immediately, He Xian turned into a gust of wind again and disappeared from the pool. It could transform into a human body with its own strength. This dark black eagle was already a supreme-level soul beast. It even had a name, which meant that it was very intelligent. And it could go deep into the untainted land. Obviously, the dark black eagle's strength was extremely terrifying. He Xian turned into a black hurricane and rushed toward the desert city. Although He Xian only got a name and knew that this man was called Li Zongjiu, he was very straightforward and brought back the heads of all the people called Li Zongjiu. Only in this way could he ensure that he did not make any mistakes. In the desert city, Li Zongjiu woke up in the training room. Recently, he felt that his cultivation was somewhat hindered. Was it because of the dragon souls in his body? No, is it because someone is going to deal with me? Li Zongjiu was shocked. This kind of feeling between experts was very accurate. At least, only those who were at the same level or even higher would have such a feeling. Could it be the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect? Immediately, Li Zongjiu smiled disdainfully. The Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect was really nothing. Originally, he had killed a few people and let it go. As long as the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect did not trouble him, he would not really destroy their sect. If it wasn't for the deep hatred between them, there would be no need to destroy the entire sect. Only Li Zongjiu said this when he was alone. In the past, Li Zongjiu had destroyed many sections. But now Li Zongjiu was not in the mood for other things. He just wanted to find Qi Yanran. Chapter 1234. As soon as Li Zongjiu walked out of the hall of the Soaring Dragon Pavilion, someone immediately came up to him. He looked exhausted, as if he had not slept for the entire night. Staying up late was quite tiring, and he did not dare to take a nap the entire night. He was afraid that he would miss Li Zongjiu. Fortunately, after Li Zongjiu appeared, he did not miss him, so he quickly came up to him. Young hero, this way please, this way please." The old man with dark circles under his eyes looked a little wretched, and he insisted on pulling Li Zongjiu to a corner. "Who are you?" Li Zongjiu asked. Hee, this lowly one was sent by the Feng family. This is a small token of our Feng family's sincerity. Young hero, please accept it. Our Feng family is very sincere in befriending you. The old man revealed a mouthful of big yellow teeth and said with a smile. At the same time, he handed over a storage bracelet. Because some storage spaces were larger, they were made into bracelets. When he saw the bracelet being handed over, Li Zongjio secretly nodded his head. At least you are sensible. Li Zongjio took the storage bracelet. Okay, I'll accept it. Since there were benefits that came to him for free, how could Li Zongjio not accept it? Moreover, there was nothing that Li Zongjio did not dare to accept for free. As long as you dared to take it, he would accept it immediately. However, the old man in front of him kept rubbing his hands and looked at Li Zongjio, as if he wanted to say something. What? Is there something else? Li Zongjio could not help but ask. Hee, young hero, that shadow recording stone, the purpose of the old man's gift this time was to ask for the shadow stone back. However, if he couldn't get it back, he wouldn't be able to report back. When he saw Li Zongjio accept the gift, he thought that Li Zongjio had already understood the situation and was willing to accept it. However, he still hadn't said anything until now, so he could only remind him. Oh, yes. Li Zongjio suddenly remembered that he had used a shadow recording stone to record the crimes of the Feng family's young master. Li Zongjio immediately searched his body. Suddenly, he slapped his thigh and said. Aya, look at my brain. I was drinking in the Great Desolation restaurant yesterday. Later, I took out the bead to play with it. I guess it should have fallen in the Great Desolation restaurant. You guys go and look for it. Li Zongjio walked away after he finished speaking. After all, this thing was really lost, and he didn't do it on purpose. There was no other way. You can only look for it yourselves. Ah. When the old man from the Feng family heard this news, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. This was simply a bolt from the blue. Before the old man from the Feng family could react, Li Zongjio had already disappeared. Oh no! In this way, not only did they lose so much money and precious things, but they still couldn't get the thing back. Moreover, the thing was deliberately left in the Great Desolation restaurant. Wasn't it terrible? With the people from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect, they could easily find the thing in the Great Desolation restaurant. If it was discovered, the Feng family would be completely finished. Now that Li Zongjio had left, they couldn't do anything to Li Zongjio, so they quickly rushed back to the Feng family to bring the news back. At the same time, they also sent people to the Great Desolation restaurant. If the people from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect hadn't arrived yet, at least there was still a chance to bring back the shadow recording stone. However, at this moment, in a room on the second floor of the Great Desolation restaurant, 5 figures gathered in this room. There was a shadow recording stone left on the floor of this private room. From the looks of it, it should have been accidentally left behind by the people who were drinking and eating here. A stream of yuan power was poured into the image recording stone and the situation within it was immediately displayed. When they saw what was recorded within the image recording stone, the eyes of the 5 people were filled with intense fury. Well, you actually dare to kill the people from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect like vegetables. Very well, I would like to see how capable you and the Feng family are. Let's go to the Feng family's territory. Although there were some clues in the shadow recording stone, it wasn't important. The important thing was that the people from the Feng family had indeed killed the people from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect. Putting aside other things, just this aspect alone was enough to make the people from the Feng family pay a price. What about the Great Desolation restaurant? Should we destroy it together? One of them asked. This person was dressed in green and had a horsetail whisk in his hand. He looked about 30 or 40 years old and was more like a cultivator. However, he kept saying that he wanted to kill everyone. Everyone couldn't help but sigh. He really didn't treat the lives of ordinary people as human lives. The person behind the Great Desolation restaurant is not to be trifled with. This time, let's give that person some face. The other person was still young and had a string of prayer beads in his hand. Speaking of the Great Desolation restaurant, these people were obviously a little afraid of the person behind the restaurant. If it wasn't for this person's support, they wouldn't know where to get the fresh ingredients in the kitchen and even the parts of some high-level meta beasts. There were some rank 5 meta beasts and rank 6 meta beasts. In fact, opening such a restaurant wasn't profitable. It was mainly a hobby. If one really wanted to make money, with such a powerful strength, of course, it would be faster to rob everywhere. It was only because he liked to cook that he continued to operate the Great Desolation restaurant. Although this matter happened in a Great Desolation restaurant, it was just a restaurant and not the mastermind behind it. Therefore, these people from the Compassionate Cloud Saints sect admitted defeat after knowing about it. Since they couldn't do anything to the Great Desolation restaurant, they would kill the people of the Feng family first. These 5 people were all elders from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect. Yesterday, an elder came with 2 disciples to rescue them, but there was no news back. It had only been a few hours. Could it be that something happened? Sure enough, when they arrived here, they did encounter something. Everyone was killed. This must be a premeditated attack. How dare they kill the people of the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect so cruelly? The Compassionate Cloud Saint sect must show the power of thunder. Li Zhongjiu naturally didn't know about the impending disaster in the Feng family. Even if he knew, it didn't matter. It had nothing to do with him. Li Zhongjiu, on the other hand, arrived at the busiest trading street in Desert City. Chapter 1235. This place was close to the untainted land, so naturally, there would be many treasures from the untainted land. However, the prices were always different. If you didn't know the market, you would be easily fooled. If you didn't have good eyesight, it would be difficult to find a real treasure in this chaotic market. Of course, sometimes, even the owners of these stalls might not know the value of the goods. A good thing was placed here, but it was sold at a very low price. In short, anything could happen on this trading street. Li Zhongjiu was just idle, and at the same time, he was making some preparations to enter the untainted land. In addition to finding Qi Yanran, since he was on the way, he could also find Kun Erisher and find the location of the Yunding Heavenly Palace. However, Li Zhongjiu didn't have time to pay attention to Kun Erisher. At the same time, he gave Kun Erisher a chance to explore and cultivate by himself. How could he grow without experiencing a real baptism of blood? This kind of thing couldn't be avoided no matter what. The trading street was often overcrowded. There were only a few famous streets, so naturally, everyone came to such places to find treasures. Li Zhongjiu strolled around and didn't find many valuable things. Instead, he found some strange things. Most of them were high-level meta beasts' fur, bone claws, blood and so on. It wasn't easy to find a meta beast, but it had to be divided into dozens of types to sell. However, when Li Zhongjiu passed by a stall, he happened to see a bracelet on the stall. The bracelet was exquisite, but it seemed to have lost its luster. From this point, everyone could see that the bracelet in front of them was definitely an extremely precious item. However, this was also in the past. Now that it had suffered great damage, this bracelet had now become a mediocre item. It was placed on the table, together with a pile of broken meta weapons. Li Zhongjiu didn't have much contact with meta weapons. After all, when one's strength was strong, the impact of these meta weapons was very small. There was no way to have any impact at all. They were all dispensable. Only some truly powerful weapons could catch Li Zhongjiu's eye. Only the unparalleled sword, the Black Dragon Hammer, the Desolate Heaven Essence and other ferocious powers could fully display his strength. Otherwise, Li Zhongjiu wouldn't even have to use any of his origin tools before they were destroyed. What use could they have? You have a good eye. My bracelet was dug out from a cave in the depths of the untainted land. Its previous owner must have been a supreme master. It's very suitable for women to wear, but it's not a problem for men to wear it. When the stall owner saw that Li Zhongjie seemed to like it very much, he immediately opened his mouth to boast. The goddess of the 9 heavens, the great phoenix immortal, and so on were all brought out. These were all fictional characters. Anyway, no one knew if they were real or not. If they were more impulsive, they wouldn't even know what was going on. How much? Li Zhongjie asked. Although the bracelet was extremely weak, Li Zhongjie could clearly feel that there was a remnant soul left in the bracelet. This was the item spirit. If he could summon the item spirit and restore it, he would definitely be able to use the bracelet's power again. At that time, it would definitely be an extremely powerful origin tool. An ancient artifact was indeed an ancient artifact. In fact, it was even older than the ancient era. Hehe, it's not expensive at all. 9 million purple yuan. The stall owner said as he rubbed his hands. The smile on his face was especially treacherous. It was as if he was about to complete the deal. He was actually able to reveal such a smile. Take it. Originally, the stall owner thought that Li Zhongjie would at least haggle the price. The lowest price could not be lower than 20,000 purple yuan. However, Li Zhongjie directly threw out a storage bag. The storage bag was filled with purple yuan notes. He only needed to scan it with his mental strength to know the amount and the authenticity of the notes. Li Zhongjie did not know where the money came from. After all, he had killed so many people and robbed so many things in the storage rings. It was difficult to calculate how much money there was. 9 million purple yuan. For Li Zhongjie, he did not even need to blink his eyes to pay. Young master, don't you want to bargain a little? When the stall owner finished counting the purple yuan notes in his hand, his eyes widened. There was actually such a foolish person. This was the first time he had met someone who didn't even open his mouth to haggle. He felt a little uneasy in his heart. What if this was a trap? Could it be that someone wanted to deal with him? However, when the stall owner raised his head, Li Zhongjie's figure had already disappeared. This made the stall owner panic. What kind of people did he meet today? Forget it, forget it. I'll just close my stall early today. After thinking about it, the stall owner felt a little uneasy. It was better to squander for a while. Li Zhongjie could be considered to have spent a lot of money. Soon, someone set his eyes on Li Zhongjie because Li Zhongjie did not look very smart. Instead, he was like a poor but very rich prince who had wandered outside. A group of 4 people also followed Li Zhongjie and quickly approached him. Li Zhongjie originally wanted to eat something and then stroll around. However, the 4 people behind him were very close. Sure enough, when he turned a corner in front of an alley, the 4 people appeared in front of him. Li Zhongjie was trapped in the middle. Kid, we are a little short on money recently. Lend us some money to spend. We will definitely not make things difficult for you. What do you think? The leader looked at Li Zhongjie with a sinister smile. The sword in his hand was also glowing with a cold light as he slowly approached Li Zhongjie. Although they had said that they would not make things difficult for Luo Yunyang, it was obvious that they wanted to kill him and rob him. Sure, come and take as much as you want. Li Zhongjie beckoned to the person in front of him. Seeing Li Zhongjie's provocative action, the person opposite him immediately revealed a fierce look. Then, he leaped up and charged directly at Li Zhongjie. Kill him. The 4 figures attacked at the same time. The 4 of them were used to killing and robbing. Their strength was rather strong and they were all at the peak of the Yuan monarch realm. When they attacked at the same time, their Yuan Qi formed a formation that trapped Li Zhongjie and suppressed him with the formation. Boom! In the next second, the heads of the 4 people exploded like wine jars and they died on the spot. Blood splattered everywhere. Chapter 1236. Li Zongjiu waved his hand and killed 4 people, leaving behind 4 corpses and a pool of blood on the ground. Li Zongjiu's figure had already disappeared. However, Li Zongjiu was unable to return to the Soaring Dragon Pavilion to rest in the end. Halfway through, he was stopped by someone on this huge street. At first glance, Feng Jianshan was beaten black and blue. Even his body was distorted. Feng Jianshan was thrown on the road, blocking Li Zongjiu's path. Is this the person? 2 figures came out. In addition to these 2 people, dozens of experts appeared in the vicinity of the street. They also cleared the street and surrounded Li Zongjiu, locking on to Li Zongjiu. Yes. Yes. Feng Jianshan's entire body was trembling. At this moment, he wished that he could just die right now. The methods of these people from the Compassionate Cloud Saint sect were truly cruel and mysterious. Every single bone in Feng Jianshan's body was broken. Now, even if Feng Jianshan was stuffed into a wine jar, it would be very easy. However, Feng Jianshan was still alive after being tortured to such a state. It was not because Feng Jianshan's vitality was tenacious, but because these people from the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect wanted Feng Jianshan to feel the pain. Therefore, they did not take Feng Jianshan's life. At the same time, this was also a kind of deterrence, telling everyone that this was the end of those who offended the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. No one was an exception. Feng Jianshan was the same. He said that you killed my people from the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. Do you have anything to say, young man? Many people had already gathered around, but they could only watch from afar. They could not get close. Although the people from the Feng family were heartbroken that Feng Jianshan was tortured to such a state, and even now, they had to obey the orders of the people from the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect to capture Li Zongjiu. This was a great shame for the Feng family. However, there was nothing they could do. If they did not obey, then these 2 people from the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect were enough to easily flatten the entire Feng family's foundation for many years. In fact, they had already paid a great price to preserve the foundation of the Feng family and ensure that the others would not die. The people of the Feng family did not know how much they had paid to control the situation in front of them. They did not want the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect to destroy the Feng family. Instead, they targeted Li Zongjiu. As long as they killed Li Zongjiu, the Feng family would have nothing to do. After all, it was impossible for Feng Jianshan to kill someone. After all, Feng Jianshan could not kill Bei. Therefore, the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect was willing to let the Feng family go. However, Feng Jianshan's fate was deliberately made for everyone to see. I don't remember. Li Zongjiu frowned, indicating that he did not remember this matter. After all, sometimes, he did not know how many people he had to kill in a day. How could Li Zongjiu remember how many people he had to kill? What did they look like? What kind of identity they had in the end? Li Zongjiu was too lazy to remember. However, Li Zongjiu naturally remembered the people from the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. After all, he killed them yesterday. Even if he could not remember things, he still had some impression. But he deliberately played with the people from the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect in front of him. You want to show off? Then, I will let you show off. It doesn't matter if you forget. My means will let you recall it again. One of them walked out. He waved the horsetail whisk in his hand gently. Immediately, a terrifying force rolled up. It seemed that under Li Zongjiu's feet, more than a dozen white silks suddenly flew out and rushed to the front of Li Zongjiu in an instant. Swish! 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 Instantly, these long white threads wrapped around Li Zongjiu, binding his entire body. Break for me! Feng Jai of the Sacred Sect was easily shaken by this person, and even every inch of his body was shaken easily. Feng Jai of the Sacred Sect did not have any power to fight back. And in this process, you can clearly hear the sound of your body breaking. In the end, you will naturally feel more and more despair and fear. Even in your mind, you will only hear the sound of your bones breaking. For a long time, you will be immersed in this pain. The person from the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect waved the horsetail whisk in his hand again. He wanted to do the same thing and break Li Zongjiu's bones, but he heard the sound of bones breaking. Bang! 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 The white silks that wrapped around Li Zongjiu's body were directly shattered by this force. This kind of binding force seemed to be completely useless, so it was easily broken. Li Zongjiu even patted the dust on his body. He looked at the person with a puzzled look. Were you helping me to clean the dust on my clothes just now? Your strength seems to be a little lacking. Li Zongjiu said indifferently. When the other party heard this, he knew that Li Zongjiu was clearly mocking him. Since Li Zongjiu dared to underestimate his strength, he had to let Li Zongjiu know how powerful he was. Die for me. Dragon's hell. The horsetail whisk in his hand suddenly swung towards Li Zongjiu. Whoosh! The power condensed on the horsetail whisk was enough to easily flatten a mountain. Li Zongjiu directly took out the unparalleled sword and slashed it out easily. Whoosh! The horsetail whisk was suddenly covered in raging flames. Shocked, the other party hurriedly threw out the horsetail whisk. In the next moment, the horsetail whisk exploded in midair with a boom. Just like that, it exploded. This person is strange. Let's work together. At this time, the other person naturally couldn't stand it anymore. Li Zongjiu's strength was indeed not weak. If they didn't deal with him carefully, they might be at a disadvantage. After all, so many people had fallen in the hands of Li Zongjiu before. Immediately, the two experts at the peak of the Origin Emperor realm erupted with a terrifying aura. The peak of the Origin Emperor realm, if it was in the Shengyan dynasty, was already a godlike existence. As long as there were no sovereigns, they could almost dominate the world. Even now, there were only a few people at the peak of the Origin Emperor realm. With these two people, it was enough to turn the world upside down in this desert city. As long as these two people were given time, it wouldn't be a problem to destroy the entire desert city, not to mention the small Feng family. However, to be on the safe side, they still sent two people to announce the strength of the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect to the outside world. For the people in the desert city, what they needed was a kind of reverence for the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect, an untainted land sect. Chapter 1237. At this moment, the rest of the major families in the desert city roughly knew what was going on. Even Gu Wei from the Gu family personally appeared in the crowd to watch the trial from the primitive sect. When Gu Wei saw Li Zongjiu being surrounded by the people from the Feng family and the two elders from the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect, Gu Wei already had an inexplicable feeling in her heart. Logically speaking, Gu Wei should be hoping that Li Zongjiu would be killed by these people. In that case, she wouldn't have to take out the elixir pills she had received previously. After all, if the client was dead, the mission would naturally be cancelled. However, in Gu Wei's heart, there was a faint premonition that it wouldn't be an easy task to kill Li Zongjiu. Until the aura of the two peak primitive emperors erupted. Gu Wei silently mourned for Li Zongjiu in her heart. Don't worry. We, the Gu family, will finish what we started. When the time comes, we will definitely collect your corpse and erect a tombstone for you. Gu Wei thought in her heart. Obviously, she didn't have any hope that Li Zongjiu could survive. The two elders from the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect were called Nian Hun, and the other one was called Bai Chen. Both of them were elders of the Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. As for why they looked so young, it was also because the two of them had changed their appearance after their cultivation reached a certain level. Some people didn't care about their appearance. However, some people were also mindful of their appearance. Therefore, when their cultivation reached a certain level, they would also use such a technique to make people unable to tell their age. Therefore, there was a saying in the desert city that one should never underestimate anyone with an ugly appearance. If you have any means, try your best to use them. If you die later, you won't have the chance. Li Zongjiu kindly advised. This was indeed a very sincere advice, but the other party obviously took it as Li Zongjiu's provocation. Very good. You are the most stubborn person I've ever met. The corners of Nian Hun's mouth curled into a cold smile. With a clap of his hand, the string of prayer beads was instantly broken apart. A total of 18 black beads suddenly floated around Nian Hun. Nian Hun then injected his mental strength into the beads. Suddenly, the 18 black beads in his hand turned into a terrifying light. The light was extremely dazzling, and 18 different giant beasts and monsters appeared in the desert city. His body was huge, and his strength was boundless. Although it looked like an illusion, it was actually real. Li Zongjiu was slightly surprised when he saw the 18 strange creatures that suddenly appeared in front of him. Is this the 18 gift technique? Li Zongjiu could not help but ask. This is the omnidirectional demon worship technique. Die. These 18 giant beasts all submitted to me. I used my mental energy to extract and refine them, finally forming these demon-worshipping prayer beads. Impressive, impressive. Although Li Zongjiu did not know what this person was talking about, he did not hesitate to praise him. In the next second, Li Zongjiu swung the unparalleled sword in his hand. Boom! Suddenly, the unparalleled sword burst out with a terrifying force, directly slashing the 18 unknown things in front of him into pieces. In front of Li Zongjiu's sword qi, the beasts formed by the demon-worshipping prayer beads turned back into energy. They disappeared in front of his eyes. Such a huge formation did not have any effect. It was directly taken down by Li Zongjiu. Immediately, Nian Hun spat out a mouthful of essence blood. The 18 demon-worshipping prayer beads shattered one after another. These demon-worshipping prayer beads were painstakingly refined and condensed. However, in the hands of Li Zongjiu, they were directly destroyed. His life's work was gone just like that. This made him quite shocked. My demon-worshipping prayer beads. Nian Hun seemed to feel a sense of pain. He never thought that something like this would happen. No matter how weak he was, he should not have been defeated by Li Zongjiu so easily. Nian Hun could not believe it. Beside him, Bai Chen suddenly threw out dozens of talismans from his sleeves. Suddenly, these talismans were torn apart in front of him. Bolts of lightning were guided by these talismans, directly smashing down on Li Zongjiu's head. Resisting these lightning bolts was a piece of cake for Li Zongjiu. Although he did not take them seriously, it was impossible for them to hurt Li Zongjiu with the power of these lightning bolts. His figure flashed and directly flew into the distance. Boom! The lightning bolts that fell were actually changing directions. They chased Li Zongjiu relentlessly all the way, which shocked everyone. The lightning bolts actually had the effect of tracking. Moreover, they were able to change directions at such a high speed. These lightning talismans were indeed incredible. They were so powerful that they were beyond imagination. No matter how fast you are, can you be faster than lightning? My lightning bolts can track you for 100,000 miles. Bai Chen laughed heartily. Clearly, he felt that Li Zongjiu's action of turning around and fleeing was extremely laughable. No matter where one ran to, the lightning would be able to easily catch up to them. Unless he could run for 100,000 miles. Whoosh! Li Zongjiu's figure suddenly turned. The power of these lightning bolts could not catch up with Li Zongjiu at all. However, Li Zongjiu still tried to slow down a little to let the lightning bolts catch up with him. Bai Chen, who was laughing loudly, suddenly stopped. Instead, he looked at the intense light that was rapidly approaching him. No! Stop! The lightning bolts in front of him were actually rushing towards Bai Chen. Just as Bai Chen was about to dispel the talisman or divert the lightning from the talisman, a powerful hand suddenly reached out and grabbed both of Bai Chen's hands. With a sudden force, Bai Chen's arms were broken. Crack! Ah! Bai Chen spat out some blood from his mouth. In the next moment, Li Zongjiu's figure disappeared. Bai Chen's figure was directly swallowed by the terrifying lightning bolts in front of him. Everyone could even see the white bones on Bai Chen's body. Furthermore, when Bai Chen's body was trapped by the lightning, more lightning bolts continued to descend from the sky. Even though Bai Chen's body had a strong defense, it was impossible for him to withstand such a bombardment. Li Zongjiu's figure had already flown to the side. The lightning bolts lasted for nearly 5 minutes before they finally weakened. Once they were trapped by the lightning bolts, they would basically be unable to move and could only obediently wait to be struck to death. Bai Chen was able to use this move to kill some origin beasts that were stronger than him. Even the Supreme Being Old Ancestor of the sect had experienced this move before. Back then, the Supreme Being Old Ancestor was also battered and exhausted by this move. However, now that it was his turn to experience it, he truly felt the extent of it. Chapter 1238. As the power of the lightning dissipated, the power of the talisman was completely depleted. Up until now, Nian Hun, who had been watching from the side, did not dare to approach. He had thought that it was bad enough that his prayer beads were destroyed. Who knew that Bai Chen would end up in an even worse state? He had been struck by his own lightning for such a long time. By the time the lightning dissipated, he had already become a cripple. Plop! Bai Chen's body fell to the ground, no longer resembling Bai Chen's original appearance. The only reason he was still alive was because he had a life-saving treasure on him. That was why he hadn't died on the spot. If the power of the talisman was just a little stronger, Bai Chen would not have been able to withstand it. Kid, it's a small world. You have offended my compassionate cloud sacred sect today. In the future, my compassionate cloud sacred sect will definitely reward you handsomely. Nian Hun said in a deep voice. He grabbed Bai Chen, who was already charred, and was about to escape the desert city. At the very least, he would return to get reinforcements and kill Li Zongjiu when he returned. However, Li Zongjiu waved his hand gently. Immediately, an extremely strong force gathered above the desert city, trapping Nian Hun's body in the city. When did I say that you could leave? Li Zongjiu's yuan power had sealed the entire desert city. Although Nian Hun's body was in the air, he did not have the opportunity to leave the place. He was suppressed by Li Zongjiu's power, as if there was a terrifying defensive shield above his head. Boom! You dare to kill me? Nian Hun stared at Li Zongjiu below. He had only roughly sensed the power and knew that he could not break through it. Hence, he gave up. If he could not break through it after struggling for half a day, it would be very embarrassing. However, Nian Hun was not worried. His and Bai Chen's statuses were extraordinary. They were both elders of the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect. If anything happened to either of them, the 3 venerable ancestors of the sect would definitely be the first to know. It would not take more than a few minutes to kill his way here. Therefore, while Nian Hun was thinking about this, the hand that was grabbing Bai Chen began to exert more strength. Bai Chen originally still had one last breath. However, after Nian Hun exerted his strength, Bai Chen's last breath turned into nothingness. Just like that, he fell to his knees. Now that the surroundings of Desert City had been sealed by Li Zongjiu, no aura could be transmitted out. This was the only way to let the great ancestor in the sect sense him. Only then would they know how dangerous he was at this moment, and then they would come to his rescue. In any case, Bai Chen was only left with his last breath and was of no use to them. In fact, he had already become a cripple. Even if they brought him back and treated him, he would still be a cripple. There was no need to save him. It would be better to help him now and release the signal. Li Zongjiu glanced at Nian Hun. Naturally, he knew that Nian Hun was doing something. How could such a small action escape Li Zongjiu's eyes? However, Li Zongjiu did not expose him. So what if he called the experts in the sect? He's here. Li Zongjiu called out softly and raised his head to look at the sky. Then, a bolt of divine lightning descended. With a boom, it hit Li Zongjiu's Yuan energy shield. Suddenly, a series of crackling sounds spread far and wide, forming a net of electricity in the sky above Desert City. However, it did not break through Li Zongjiu's seal boundary. Release the people of Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. Otherwise, Desert City will be destroyed today. An extremely dignified voice rang out from afar. It seemed that the owner of the voice felt that he had lost face because he failed to break through the first attack. If he failed to break through the second attack, wouldn't it be quite embarrassing? Our old ancestors of Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect have arrived. Kid, you'd better surrender. Nian Hun said coldly. When he looked at Li Zongjiu, it was as if he was looking at a dead man. Offending Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect would not end well. In the eyes of Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect, Desert City was just a poor and barren city. It was not a threat at all and had no value. It was just a city in the mortal world. Now, it dared to provoke the powerful existence in the untainted land. If it was not courting death, then what was it? In the eyes of the untainted land sects, they were high and mighty gods. They were the real people who had achieved Tao. We'll talk about it when you come in. Li Zongjiu raised his head and glanced at Nian Hun. Then, he looked at Nian Hun in front of him and his lips curled into a smile. Do you think that you'll be saved when your old ancestors come? Sorry, you won't live until then. Li Zongjiu shrugged his shoulders. In the next moment, the sword in his hand slashed out and instantly split Nian Hun's body into two halves. Boom! Nian Hun's body directly exploded in the air. Blood splattered everywhere. It was an extremely tragic end. You're courting death. Nian Hun died without any suspense. This was simply a great insult to the old ancestor of Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect who was chasing after him. He had already used his great magic to arrive in time, but because he cared about his face, he did not make a second move. Therefore, the blood of an elder of Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect directly splattered across the sky. This made the old ancestor of Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect extremely angry. Nian Hun, who had just been killed, was the disciple of the old ancestor of Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. Today, if I, old ancestor of Compassionate Mountain, can't kill you, I'll kill myself on the spot. As his voice fell, a thunderbolt condensed in the hand of the old ancestor of Compassionate Mountain. Light circulated in the sky again. Wind fire divine thunder spell. The old ancestor of Compassionate Mountain muttered. Finally, when the spell fell, an incomparably loud purple light streaked across the entire sky. Boom! This ball of purple light fell from the sky. It directly blasted towards Desert City below. Buzz! However, the wind-fire divine thunder incantation didn't seem to have much of an effect. Although one could see the rolling divine thunder rolling continuously above the Desert City, it didn't seem to be very effective. However, these people were also quite shocked in their hearts. At that moment, they even thought that they were about to die. Who knew that the strength of the young man in front of them was so terrifying? If that lightning bolt had fallen, it would have been enough to easily wipe out all the people in Desert City. Chapter 1239. Who is this young man? If I'm not wrong, the person in the sky is one of the patriarchs of Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect, Patriarch Ci Shan. I don't know. He just appeared out of nowhere. However, this young man must have a deep grudge against Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. Otherwise, he wouldn't have killed the elder of Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect for Patriarch Ci Shan's sake. Everyone was discussing fervently. They were also curious about Li Zongjiu's mysterious identity. At this moment, the people of Feng family had already retreated quietly with their young master. Although Feng Jianshan was tortured beyond recognition, at least he was still alive. As long as he was alive, they wouldn't give up so easily. After all, Feng Jianshan's father was the patriarch of Feng family. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made such a big fuss. Now, it had become a showdown between Li Zongjiu and Compassionate Cloud Sacred Sect. Gu Wei saw how Li Zongjiu had easily killed 2 peak primitive emperors and was now on par with the patriarch of a supremacy realm. Such terrifying strength caused Gu Wei and the others to be completely shocked. This person's strength is too terrifying. Can a supremacy realm expert defeat him? If Li Zongjiu could defeat Patriarch Xi Shan, it meant that Li Zongjiu was also a supremacy realm expert. Supremacy realm, he was so young. Although the desert city was close to the untainted land, there was only one supremacy realm expert in the entire desert city. It was enough to show how terrifying a supremacy realm expert was. If Li Zongjiu was really a supremacy realm expert, Gu family must seize hold of Li Zongjiu. Men, go and inform the family immediately. Activate the top-notch spy ship. We must find news about Sparrow Divine Palace. Gu Wei said. Top-notch spy ship. This was a top-notch investigation. At the same time, it also meant that Gu family would do whatever it took to obtain this information. Gu family would put down everything in their hands and work together to find accurate information about Sparrow God Palace. This made it very difficult to deal with, because it would only be used when the Gu family was in a life and death situation. Eldest Miss, I'm afraid this is against the rules, right? The attendant who was called over was also Gu Wei's right-hand man. Basically, many things were handled by this right-hand man. Therefore, after the attendant heard this, he instantly understood why Gu Wei did this, but the consequences were very serious. Cut the crap. Just say that I said it. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility. Go quickly. If you delay, I'll kill you. Gu Wei said immediately. The subordinate immediately understood that Gu Wei's heart must be extremely resolute. He immediately responded and then quickly rushed into the family clan. Then, Gu Wei once again looked at Li Zongjiu, who was in the sky. Since Li Zongjiu had already displayed the terrifying strength of a supreme being, Li Zongjiu would at least be able to survive today's calamity, even if he couldn't come out unscathed. If he couldn't survive, he could always escape. Therefore, Li Zongjiu was really fearless. If Li Zongjiu left, he would definitely come to the Desert Eagle tomorrow to collect information. If Gu family didn't find anything now, although they wouldn't be offending them, it would be more difficult for them to have a supreme being to protect them in the future. Such an opportunity was fleeting. Only by providing the most precious information, which was of sufficient weight, could they keep Li Zongjiu. It was also because of this that Gu Wei chose to do this without hesitation. Gu family immediately took action at this critical juncture. It was already a matter of life and death for the desert city, yet they were still searching for something like the Sparrow Deity Palace. It was simply unreasonable. However, Miss Gu Wei's order still had some influence. Immediately, the spy ship started to operate at full speed. At the very least, they had to find information about the Sparrow Deity Palace. If they didn't get a corresponding reward after finding it, someone would naturally come to deal with Gu Wei. Old ancestor Xi Shan's charged attack was easily blocked by Li Zongjiu. His face turned black on the spot. Is this all the Xiayun sacred sect is capable of? Where's your immortal coiling array? Why didn't you use it? Li Zongjiu said indifferently. The immortal coiling array was the top formation of the Xiayun sacred sect. If it was used, it would be easy to kill gods and demons. Li Zongjiu had been trapped by the immortal coiling array once. After suffering a loss, Li Zongjiu felt quite unhappy. Therefore, since he was going to confront the Xiayun sacred sect again this time, he had to ask for advice from the immortal coiling array again. You actually know the secret of our sect's killing move. Old ancestor Ci Shan was shocked when he heard Li Zongjiu's words. He had never thought that Li Zongjiu would know the secret of their sect's killing move. Currently, the three ancestors of the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect were in seclusion to study the immortal trapping formation. If the immortal trapping formation could be refined successfully, the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect would become one of the top sects in the untainted land. However, the immortal trapping formation had not been fully studied yet. Now, it was just a prototype. Some of the formation tools needed for the immortal coiling array had not been refined yet. However, even the disciples of the Xiayun sacred sect did not know about it. How could Li Zongjiu know about it? Who the hell are you? Old ancestor Ci Shan scolded angrily. However, Li Zongjiu shook his head. It seems that you haven't refined it yet. Then, even if the three of you work together, you are still no match for me. Leave by yourselves. Never leave the untainted land. Otherwise, I, evil lord, will flatten the Xiayun sacred sect. Li Zongjiu said. Evil lord. Li Zongjiu finally announced his name. Sometimes, a name was enough to get a lot of information. Old ancestor Ci Shan and the others were not very familiar with the name Evil Lord. However, Gu Wei, who specialized in intelligence, was very familiar with this name. Evil Lord. Evil Lord, Li Zongjiu. The protector of the Shengyan dynasty. It's him. He's too young. Everyone exclaimed one after another. Gu Wei's heart was also completely shocked. She had already heard of Li Zongjiu's reputation, but she had never thought that it would actually be this young man in front of her. The gap between them was really quite big. It's really him. When Gu Wei heard Li Zongjiu's name, it was as if a huge rock had been lifted from her heart. Previously, she had only guessed in her heart. She did not expect that it was indeed Li Zongjiu. Chapter 1240. The people below had heard of Li Zongjiu's name. However, ancestor Ci Shan did not know Li Zongjiu's name at all. His Compassionate Cloud sacred sect had never taken these secular dynasties seriously. The resources occupied by the Shengyan dynasty were simply a drop in the ocean for the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect. Only a large number of resources in the untainted land were what the people of the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect needed. Therefore, they had never heard of the names of Li Zongjiu or Evil Lord. However, Li Zongjiu had said that the three of them were no match for him. If ancestor Ci Shan left today, it would be equivalent to throwing the name of the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect into the smelly ditch. In the future, when these people mentioned the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect, they would only treat it as a joke. In front of Li Zongjiu, they would never be able to raise their heads. Ancestor Ci Shan did not retreat. A light lit up in his hand. A bronze mirror appeared in his hand. Inside the bronze mirror, there seemed to be rolling dark clouds emerging. It was enough to see that there was an extremely terrifying thunder pool power in it. A little of it was enough to destroy the world. Thunder Soul Mirror. Ancestor Ci Shan was good at refining the power of thunder and lightning. However, most of his power, even his current cultivation, was learned from the Thunder Soul Mirror. This was a special life-saving treasure, and also the secret weapon of Ancestor Ci Shan. In the face of Li Zongjiu, Ancestor Ci Shan had directly used his trump card. It could be seen how eager he was to kill Li Zongjiu. Young man, you want to destroy my Compassionate Cloud sacred sect. I'm afraid you alone are not enough. All of a sudden, a voice that sounded like a hammer slamming into the sky was heard. It was a heavy blow. The entire desert city shook at this moment, as if it had been forcibly suppressed by the other party's momentum. The momentum released by the person affected the entire city. The person who came was extremely powerful. I haven't come out for hundreds of years. It seems that the world has forgotten the strength of my compassionate cloud sacred sect. Another voice came from another part of the sky. The wind and clouds in the distance also kept rolling with this voice. After feeling all of this, everyone in the desert city was simply numb. Could it be that today was the day of the return of the gods? Normally, it would be hard to see a supreme being expert, yet 4 of them had come all at once. Moreover, 3 of them were in a group, and their purpose was to confront the 4th person. If it wasn't for Evil Lord's strength, they wouldn't have brought so many people. It was enough to show how much pressure Li Zongjio was exerting on them. This was what led to the gathering of the 3 supreme being experts. Each of them was riding a primitive emperor white crane. He was also holding a wooden fish in his hand as he rode the white crane and floated over. Seeing this person's attire, Yi Zichen nodded. Gu Wei exclaimed, "Old ancestor Ci He." He was one of the 3 old ancestors of the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect. The last person to arrive was barefoot. His figure soared into the sky and took a step on the spot. His figure was already above the desert city, truly crossing 1,000 miles in a single step. He didn't have anything in his hand. He looked like an old man who was taking a stroll in front of his house after having dinner. However, this person's strength was the strongest among the 3. Old ancestor Ci Yun. The strongest expert of the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect. Not only did the 3 old ancestors of the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect come, but even the current sect master of the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect came from afar with a large number of experts of the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect. This momentum was like an army of gods and demons. The mighty aura spread all over the sky above the desert city, which made the people in the desert city feel numb. It also made these people, who were usually high and mighty, thoroughly feel the extent of their own inferiority today. They originally thought that they could control a lot of things in the desert city, but in front of these real experts, they were even less than weak ants. In front of power, they were all ants. Originally, the experts in the desert city also felt an indescribable bitterness. Such an expert only needed to flick his finger to easily flatten all of their hard work and painstaking efforts. They would no longer have any meaning to exist. Even the hard work they had put in all their lives was not even worth a fart to the other party. It was probably the most complete gathering of the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect. So many experts came together to kill. Gu Wei looked at Li Zongjio, who was in front of her. Li Zongjio in front of her had angered so many experts. How could he face the current situation? It seemed that he had reached a point of no return. Everyone is here. Sure enough, this kind of destined thing can't be escaped. Li Zongjio also seemed to understand this point. Of course, he couldn't change the fate of others. No matter how hard Li Zongjio worked, he could only change his own fate. For example, the fate of so many people in the Compassionate Cloud sacred sect was about to fall today. Li Zongjio indeed didn't have the strength to change it. Since everyone is here, let's start. Li Zongjio raised his hand and removed the defensive barrier above his head. If the 3 of them joined forces, this fragile defensive barrier would definitely not be able to withstand. Just as Li Zongjio was about to remove the defensive barrier above his head, the 3 Supreme Being experts all took action together. An earth-shaking aura surged out. However, Li Zongjio's figure instantly disappeared from where he stood. He easily shattered the restraints that the 3 of them had placed on him. Whoosh! Whoosh! All of a sudden, 8 sky-piercing pillars appeared, accompanied by intense light. As the light gradually dissipated, the 8 sky-piercing pillars appeared once again. Buzz! It seemed to be the call of death from ancient times. The 3 patriarchs were shocked as well. Break the array. Old ancestor Xieyun took the lead and struck out with his palm. His face was filled with fear. If he didn't destroy the formation in front of him, he would definitely be trapped in the formation and would never be able to break free. Boom! 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 The power of the three people attacked the same point at the same time, but this power was directly blocked by Li Zongjiu. The unparalleled sword blocked in front of him, and the sharp sword aura split the three of them apart. At this moment, the array was completed. The soul-burning array quickly condensed its power. Not good. Old ancestor Xia Yun's face immediately turned ugly. Li Zongjiu's figure had already retreated from the array, and the soul-burning array began to operate. The three of them immediately gathered together, trying to gather their power and at least break the array in front of them. However, the devouring power from the soul-burning array made them unable to divert their attention. They only had time to protect themselves. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.